There are over 4,000 guns in this building. Some of them are worth very little, but somewhere in there, a few of them are very, very good. Most of them sit somewhere in between, and you could spend days in here trying to figure out which one is which, because this is the sealed bid. There's no bidding wars, no second chances. You kind of get one shot to decide what something is worth, and that is what makes this all so special. As much as I'd love to look through everything today, that just isn't possible, so I've selected some of my favorites to share with you as always. Let's start with something particularly pretty. We will look at something vastly more curious as time goes on, but this is actually a great indicator of the quality that can be had in the sealed bid. It is lot 7118C, a George Gibbs sidelock. This gun is 8 to 1200, which is quite expensive by sealed bid standards, but it's quite a lot of gun. There is a couple of bits we'll get into right at the end, which kind of prevent it from going in the big boys sale. It's made 1893. Gibbs, although a provincial gun maker, is one of the best gun makers of their era. They were a maker of best guns, that is, and well, they're known for some great rifles, great double rifles, and great sidelock shotguns, which this is one. Let's have a little look over what you get. So right in the middle here you can see is that classic sidelock British action. George Gibbs is based out of 39 Corn Street, Bristol. Bristol isn't a great gun making city, is it? It was a great port of its time, but it doesn't hold the recognition that London guns do. London has that prestige and premium level, but this Bristol gun maker still has a lot of quality, even though it has slightly less recognition. Although I think it's fair to say, and people who are Gibbs fans will agree with me, although they may lack certain touches of refinement, they are often as good as London best guns. Just, you know, without the fame. Gibbs themselves were known for rifle work, precision engineering, and were adopting new materials early, like these Whitworth fluid pressed steel barrels. On the sidelock itself, we can see about 1 million pins and some beautiful fine scroll. This is top class workmanship. The shapes on this are not refined, but they are beautifully styled. If we just look at the way that the detonation flows and is filed into the barrels there, this is quality workmanship, and sort of shows a dedication to a slight higher level of ruggedness potentially, but still with plenty of refinement. From the engraving to the checkering, we've got some super fine, what's this, 32 line per inch flat point with a gold escutcheon, and then if we move it and wheel it on back to the drop point here, it's a really beautiful sleek drop point. Some slight setting cracks in the stock. This is one of the slight issues with this gun, is that it has had a life. All those little signs of quality do indicate to those who love and know guns that this is a great thing. And I guess that does just leave Gibbs in the if you know category. And there's an element of snobbishness that comes with any provincial gun maker, an element of their making guns for their clients. It's again to parallel it with the Scottish gun trade, and we've discussed them a lot in the past. You have to look at who was ordering these guns. It's a big port city, Bristol, right? You do have some old money. There is a lot of landed gentry in the West Country that would have used Bristol as their big town. This would have been where they would have gone to go and got their gun, potentially. But the real wealth in Bristol is merchants and traders, relatively new money. I guess even if we look at the in circles today, our friendship circle and the people that we shoot and hang out with does affect the sort of gun that we buy. Be that something more practical and reliable, or be that something more refined. Snobbishness flows in all kinds of directions, as we've also said in the past. You rarely see Gibbs's by comparison to a lot of other makers. This is a really nice one. So, downsides. Let's look at some downsides, shall we? This is number 2 of a pair. Its friend is lost to time. We have setting cracks in the stock. I probably wouldn't worry too much about those. They are repairable and they are not major. The major issue for me comes that when we take this fore end off, you get the first feel of it. We give the barrel a shake, it's tight, but we try and open that top lever it will take Iron Man strength to work that. We then work it off the gun, and it's not that bad. It's a good top lever spring. Everything sits good. So it then begs the question of what else has been done. If we look at the hook, there has been some work done to the hook. You can see a weld and rejoint spot there. And if we look at the back of the lumps here, we can see again another touch of work. This gun has either started a rejoint and not finished, or something has happened somewhere along the line, which means that this gun is not ready to roll. And if we look at the mainsail, most of those guns are ready to roll with minimal work. Yes, there may be some barrel issues and some other little bits, but they all have either a lot higher value that need little work, or they're in good order or better order than this. In the grand scheme of things, that actually doesn't put me off of this gun. That is a relatively easy fix for the right person with the right tools. So there you go. A beautiful British sidelock, not out of London, not out of anywhere that you would have expected, but out of Bristol. The second gun we are going to check out is the first slightly odd one. Not particularly rare, but slightly odd for those of you who've never encountered one before. This is an Ishapur riot gun, a #1 Mark III Indian built rifle made in 1944, although those of you who are into history will know that this, the #1 Mark III, is a World War I era rifle. More importantly than that, this is not in 303 British, this is in 410. It's a 410 single shot conversion, meaning the little tray in the top is converted to 410, and those were done at the Ishapur factory. For a number of reasons, a lot of them were done afterwards as well, and it's not uncommon to find a lot of 410s converted over. It's a relatively simple conversion from the bolt face and the barrel change from a 303 to a 410, and also I think, as well as being easy, makes it a much more practical gun. If we look at gun laws, certainly in the UK over time, as well as across the empire previous, shotguns were a lot easier for people to own, depending on where you were and who you were, than a rifle. And a shotgun you could have kicking around that you could load a 2.5-inch shell into, go and shoot anything from a small bird in your garden, to a rat, to a fox. Again, with varying efficacy, rabbits, rooks, even small four-legged game with the right cartridge. And that's kind of interesting. The reality is that purely practical side is kind of dead today, and what is left is a very curious 9-pound shotgun rifle. You have a lot of the original features, which is kind of cool. The original sights are all on here. Again, that's neat, but does make it less practical from a shotgun perspective. I originally always thought they left these on for curiosity value, but given that a lot of these were either made or converted in this fashion, I presume there is a deeper reason for that, and I don't entirely know what that is. That's going to bear a little bit more research. What is interesting about Ishapur, Ishapur was founded as an arms factory by the British Empire in India in 1801, and is it the world's, or one of the world's longest continual military arms factories, still part of the Indian arsenal manufactured today. That's really cool. If you've never shot one of these, you need to get your hands on it. There is so much joy to be had racking that bolt, feeding them in, and they can be ammo fussy. You know, I'm not saying these guns are perfect, in fact, far from it. And I think maybe, just maybe, in a world where we search perfection for our sporting clays guns, search perfection for our game guns, and sort of, certainly I know a lot of us obsess over these little things. It's okay to wind it all back to basics and go, this gun looks really cool. It may be fussy, it may have little issues, but it is a joy to shoot. And when I succeed with it, I have beaten the odds. And that's a lot of fun. If you've never tried one, I suggest finding a friend who has one, or get them on yourself. It's not wasted space in the cabinet. You and all of your friends will make such joyous memories and have such fun with one of these. It's not the sort of thing you need to keep forever. I can assure you, plenty of my friends have had them and then let them go. And that's the point. They've held their value forever. It's not a bad investment to get it, enjoy it, and then pass that joy on to the next. As much as some of these were made originally in 410, a lot of that was actually happening later. This would have been Police All Military Service Issue 303 originally, but then bought out and converted thereafter. Marked on the top is GRI, George Rex Imperator. And it's important to note that the riot gun nomenclature is attached to this 410 conversion in itself, because the 410 conversions, as much as they were done for civilian use, they were also done for police riot control. They were done for prison riot control, and they were done for training. A lot of that is because a 410 is considered less lethal. A lot of that is because a 410 is less lethal than a 303. There you go. I think that's kind of a smart piece of history. An Ishapur riot gun. How cool is that? Simon, every time I come to the sealed bid, I have a bit of a plan, and then every time I bump into you and you bring in another load of guns, because even though I'd say with the main sale, we're kind of aligned on the things that we're interested in or want to share, in the sealed bid, it's just not possible.
No, it's huge.
There's so much.
This is the biggest sealed bid we've ever done. You do go gun blind. You're never going to see it all. And there are certain things that appeal to me that I feel duty-bound to put in front of you.
This is a lump. I didn't even get into the hammer guns, and I
know.
I'm kind of sad that I didn't look now, because there's a goodly number of nice ones.
Yes.
What is it?
This isn't perfect, but it is a nice old 1900 William Evans top lever hammer gun with lovely Damascus barrels in 32-inch with full choke, and it's 2 3/4 inch chamber wild-filing hammer gun from 1900. It's really nicely proportioned, it's really nicely made, Birmingham made, retailed in London. It handles really well for a 32-inch.
And William Evans, respected maker, pretty much, right?
Respected retailer.
Respected retailer,
yes.
Sorry.
Important
but
distinction.
Maker's name.
Maker's name.
If you look at the market, there's plenty of people who have guns made with their name on, and it is very different from the original product because they're making it to their spec and putting their name behind it. So
almost every gun maker was doing this at one point.
There needs some kind of distinction. I say retailer's a strong word.
It's not derogatory, it's just a statement of fact. So it's not meant to be rude, it is a statement of fact, and it's important that we understand how the trade was functioning at this point.
Did they have their own workshop?
They will have had, I'm sure they had some finishing shops that they would have worked from to put their stamp on the guns. They would have been buying actions in the white and finishing them, so I'm almost certain that they would have done, but a lot of that got, taken out of production by the Luftwaffe, so we don't really know what happened. I'm sure there are people out there who do. As I say, it's not perfect. It has had a few repairs. When it came in from the chap who consigned it, I remember him bringing it in. I didn't look as closely because I love the way it handles and the proportions of it are really nice. They're lovely.
It's a big, nice,
but it's proportionately really nice, which is one of the reasons it handles really well.
Delicate in the right places, but in the hands, by modern standards.
Yeah, it moves really well.
Yeah, you'd happily go and shoot it.
Oh yeah.
Long stock as well, like 15
long stock
inches,
with that, it's got a pretty good extension on it. But then
doesn't bother
people of our size with our arm length need that. So one of the things to point out is the hammers do not match, and one has got quite a large weld repair to the spur.
Oh, wow.
So things have happened. It's been squeezed a little bit as well, and the crosspin isn't quite sitting straight, and all of those things are forgivable because it's
130-something years old.
It's 126 years old, so it's forgivable because it's seen a bit of life, and actually that's part of its charm.
This is exceptionally interesting value for the fact that it's 70mm chambered.
From original as well. That's not been taken out.
Yeah, and this is the first time I've ever seen this, is 12LC long chamber.
Standing for long chamber, correct. An 1.25 ounces gives you an indication of the chamber length as well.
See, that's actually really interesting, because Britain wasn't on that train. We were the 2.5 camp, 2 3/4 American guns, and I own American guns from this era that have 70mm 2 3/4 inch chambers.
Yeah.
It's rare to see. Is that
it is rare to see. Right? In this particular part of history, yes, it is. It's not unheard of, but it is unusual. Let's put it that way. And it's possible that the duck hunters of the sport gunners of the US were corresponding with sport gunners of the UK, because at this time in 1900, people were travelling up from London to go and shoot geese in Norfolk. This is what several of the hotels in the coastal towns of Norfolk were built on, was sport gunners coming from London.
Pleasure duck hunting.
Pleasure duck hunting and
In
goose
1900.
hunting. Yes, it was
Interesting.
happening. There were guides, local wildfowlers making money guiding people from London to go out and do it.
That's fascinating.
So it's possible that they were corresponding with American duck hunters who are all into the 70mm chambers and saying, and maybe he said, I want a 70mm chamber, 32-inch one.
I guess my conversations with Nick Horton over the years very much sort of lent me to believe, certainly on the south coast, that it was still very much market hunter led or pot hunter led in the turn of the century at least. That's amazing.
No, you can understand it though, because if you're a gentleman, a professional working in the City of London, and you don't have grouse shooting contacts and you don't have a lot of game shooting contacts because you're a professional working in London, but you still like the idea of going out and doing a bit of hunting, why wouldn't you get on a train?
No different to now, right?
Go up to King's Lynn, get a coach and horses out to Wells and book a day's goose shooting with a local guide. Those guides did exist.
That is super cool. And you may well have nipped down to William Evans and been like, I need a big gun. And they'd have gone,
yeah, we can sort that. We can sort that out.
This one got rejected from our American export order.
Yeah.
Here you go, sir.
Absolutely.
Did they send out guns to America, William Evans?
They may have done. I don't know. You'll have to ask the record keepers.
I mean, it's an international company, isn't it?
So,
it's 1900. Americans would have been in London.
Yeah.
That does make some sense.
It does, yeah.
But yeah, that's just a lovely big gun.
It's a nice old thing.
Modern, that sounds silly. I reckon back then they're probably like, oh man, I've got this huge gun. And now I'm like, yeah, it's just about big enough.
Yeah.
That's almost the right size.
Yeah.
What a lovely thing. Lot 5262 is the next pit stop on my adventure into safari rifles. I've promised myself that this is something I was going to educate myself on, and so I'm throwing myself in there, and you're coming along for that journey too. This is a Parker Hale 375, a Parker Hale Safari. Parker Hale, I mean, it was a name in rifles when I first got into it. It was kind of a case of, this is in the mid-2000s, if you wanted a second-hand rifle, it was likely to be a Parker Hale or a BSA. And it's sort of the cheaper end of rifles that I could afford. If you wanted a nicer, newer rifle, it was likely to be a Tikka, and they were like £675 or something. I remember the T3 Lite. I even remember the advertising campaign. I, in fact, did my GCSE art project based around gun adverts, and that was one of the three that I chose as an inspiration for that. I am indeed a loser. But I brought this one out today because, well, I realised I knew not a lot, and so I deep dove, I did a deep dive before I came here, and this is what I learnt. But before we go there, let's have a little look over what we've got. This is a 1965 Parker Hale Safari in 375 Holland & Holland Magnum. It's got a 24-inch barrel with a single V-sight and an open front sight with no hood. We've got a anti-glare checkering on the front sight rib there, which is actually kind of cool. It is a Mauser style action, a classic Mauser style action with a wing safety. Again, it's kind of your basic Commonwealth Garden workhorse safari rifle, £400 to £700. We've got a coarse checkering, walnut stock with a rosewood grip, and a, for the era of 1965, softer. And to be fair, I think it's well known that harder rubber is actually better for recoil, actual recoil feel than soft rubber. Recoil pad, sling swivel on the stock, sling swivel on the barrel, and it is all in pretty clean order for a 1965 rifle. There are plenty of big bore rifles that never make it out to Africa, and if they do, they fire 2 shots and they come back having been cleaned and never do anything again. What is interesting is we've got the Weaver scope, a V4.5-2. It's a 1.5 to 4.5 power scope with a simple line reticle. It's incredibly eye-really fussy, but just again, a nice interesting thing of the era. Perhaps not what I'd want to take on this rifle now, but it was what someone chose to put on there at one point, 375 being the basic entry-level minimum caliber for most countries for shooting big game. Also kind of a good choice for most people because you can shoot more or less all plains game with it. With the right bullet selection, 375 is and always probably will be the most common caliber in Africa. Not maybe what you want with a charging animal, but luckily that's what PHs are for. We'll have a look at something ridiculously, not ridiculously big, but quite a bit bigger than this in a minute. So Parker Hale, originally founded in 1880s Birmingham by a guy called William Parker, who was a gunsmith who partnered with a guy called Arthur Hale, who was, well, a businessman. Their early equipment was sights, gun accessories, and cleaning equipment. Time goes on, and in the early 20th century, so if we're founded 1880, this is by like 1910 to 1930, we see them producing things like aperture sights, things for precision shooting. There's strong links to target shooting and British military target shooting. I think it's fair to say that Parker Hale in those early days, and even through to this era, built their reputation on precision, not really prestige. They made great quality components for people who needed things that worked. There was no fluff in the branding, it was just, we make a product, it's good, you should buy it. And people who bought it did well, and so that kind of snowballed in itself. Cue the end of World War II, there's a lot of guns available on the market. A lot of guns available on the market because, you know, the Germans didn't need them anymore. And to be fair, we didn't need a lot of what we'd made either. What we end up with is a glut of Mauser 98 actions hitting the world. And so this isn't what they started with. They started converting military rifles into civilian rifles. They sold some of them. They got all of these Mauser style actions. They now go, let's turn them into other guns. And we see that not only on this big bore stuff, but plenty of deer caliber rifles as well. And it's fair to say that the Parker Hale 270 probably accounted for majority of Scottish deer shot through a 20 or 30 year period, if not longer. Hell, like I said, it was a choice between the BSA CF2 or a Parker Hale, unless you had lots of money and you could afford. So silly thinking of these things as these out of reach sort of brands and guns. I'm not going to list them at this point, but yeah, funny how life changes. Certainly funny how rifles have changed. Those early rifles, I would have been super happy to be able to, you know, shoot a 4-inch group at 100 yards, and now I'm sat here choosing which ammunition and how to set my stock and trigger up to maximize accuracy. Although I still carry that minute of deer mindset pretty much everywhere I go. Anyway, back to the rifle. Off the back of the rifle conversion era, we get into the more intentional build, this Parker Hale Safari era. That's 1950 to 1970s. Purpose-built guns around purpose-built Mauser actions. These came in 270, 30-06, and 375 mag. I have seen other calibers out there. I'm guessing they must have been rebarreled. It was designed for Commonwealth. It was designed for British sportsmen being posted overseas. It was designed for people who just wanted a working rifle made in England that was affordable. Bang. This was it. No frills, accurate, simple shooting gun. And it's lovely to have one like this in my hand today. One that hasn't been ragged, one that hasn't been hurt, just one that would make a great safari rifle for £400 to £600. Are they the most accurate rifles by modern day standards? No. But if you get the right one, load correctly for it, you can get them plenty accurate enough for what you're going to want to use one of these for. Maybe the scope needs an update, but luckily great glass is dirt cheap. And it's got these little bad boys on it for, well, if you want something that's supremely reliable. Parker Hale actually moved on from rifles into shotguns. We see Parker Hale named shotguns from Japan and from Italy. And then by the 90s, we take a bit of a U-turn from that venture and back only into accessories, cleaning rods, oils, and that kind of thing. I guess names and brands change hands, change management, and change direction all the time, and so it should be no surprise to us that Parker Hale is no different. This is a classic British rifle. Maybe not Rigby standard, maybe not Holland and Holland or Purdy standard, but nevertheless, to me, my generation, and, and it's going to sound pathetic because it is just a cheap rifle, but to me this will always have a soft spot in my heart as one of the rifles that I dreamed of getting as my first gun. Just not in 375. In addition to the big ones, Simon.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just raw practicality,
Yeah.
cool bit of history, man stuff. This is a V8.
Yeah.
That doesn't look English at all.
No, well, yes and no. I mean, I see what you're saying.
And it's got essence of, it's oddity. The colours, the colour of the wood, the hammers, the lock plates, even these fences. There's something distinctly European about it.
Okay. What are we missing?
They don't need hammers because there's no firing pins.
Hammerless, exactly. The firing pins are on the inside of the action. The hammers are on the outside. So that is the weird, charming thing about this Perrins and Sons 16 bore, which is one of the reasons I brought it out. You're right, it looks different. The lock plate is very Rigby-esque, but these hammers also slope down like hare's ear hammers is what we sometimes call them. They're not quite hare's ear hammers, but look at the profile when it's cocked.
Proper. You
cannot see those hammers when you've got the gun on your shoulder and it's cocked.
What's the logic?
It was, it's unclear. This is quite an early gun. It's probably the transition away from external hammers to internal hammers. And it's trying to appeal to the cross market, those who aren't quite comfortable hammers being on the hammer being on the inside of the lock plate, striking the pin. Right? And people wanting to, obviously, that is the way they're cocking as well.
You've spent your entire life saying that this is the way you shoot, this is what's safe. It's no different to old boys on game shoots saying you can't use an auto because they're not safe.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a similar kind of conversation. Like, no, you can't have those internal hammer guns, you're not taking one of them out, boy. You best have something with external hammers.
I have faced criticism with a hammer gun in the field in modern times.
Are you serious? Yeah. Reverse criticism.
Yeah. You can't have a hammer gun, it's dangerous. We were standing around at Levens's. This chap had his box lock over his arm, looked at my hammer gun over my arm and said, those hammer guns are dangerous, they shouldn't be out in the field. And I said, well, funnily enough, this is actually post-1873, so this is a rebounding lock. So when my hammer falls and strikes the firing pin, it then bounces back and is unable to strike the firing pin again. So when I close it, it's not going to accidentally discharge by being knocked. Your BSA, standard box lock ejector, doesn't have an intercepting sear, so if you drop it, your hammer could connect with the pin. So arguably, yours is less safe than mine. At which point he swallowed his slow gin, spun on his heel and stopped talking to me, which was kind of the point.
Did you not wear your autism alert t-shirt? It's like 100% you can't go out in public without like in disguise. It's like going and giving Bruce Wayne a slap, man. That's
can I just not have a t-shirt that says a touch of the tism? But no, it's an interesting point. There is
for trains.
It is probably trying to appeal to a crossover market and is arguably less successful in the process. In the same way that Wesley Richards, when you look at Wesley Richards' hammer gun, you don't see them after a certain period. They dove straight into the Anson and Dealey box lock and barely made another hammer gun because they were all in to the new technology. This is a halfway house to the new technology, but it's charming in its own right. It's got beautiful, naive game scene and dog engraving, but also these fluting of the detonators and the fences here. That's lovely. It's a really nice touch. It's not perfect. The top lever is a little mobile, which we don't like so much.
Worcester.
Yeah. Perrins and Sons of Worcester. Nothing to do with Liam Perrins.
I mean, come on.
Nothing to do with Worcester sauce.
Like if we worked the tree where you go back down another branch of the Perrins tree in Worcester.
There's a
Worcester
lot. Okay.
Sauce.
So
Perrins
is an uncommon name in the rest of the country, except around Worcester, where it's really quite a common name.
So the root. 15th cousin removed. Give us 15th cousin.
Look, there may be a link.
Of Splish and Chips.
There may be a link that I'm unaware of in my very cursory research. I'm not going to say there isn't.
Hold up. I actually went down a bit of a rabbit hole with this Perrins gun thing after seeing this back. I wanted to see if we could prove there was a link. And turns out we can. But first, the Perrins gun makers. They weren't just some blokes from Worcester. They actually have quite a serious line of gun makers. John was born, I think, in 93. One of those brothers set up a gun maker in Windsor, sold guns to Prince Albert. One of the other brothers or sons set up a very famous barrel maker of the turn of the century in Birmingham. So they have a huge amount of actual reputation for a gun maker I almost knew nothing about. Now here comes the more important part. This family is of course embedded in the Worcestershire trade, and they don't quite make it into the 20th century. By the way, it's actually a sad and important thing. By the 1890s, the Worcester business was sold on to someone else, and the name kind of fades out in that area. It's always an interesting thing to see during that gun making boom in the 1870s and 1880s. Lots of people get into that industry and they all sell it on, and the world changes. I guess if we also look at the changes in that time, we see a lot more engineering solutions coming in. So the need for men, or the capacity for gun makers to make lots of guns, becomes slightly higher as time goes on. Anyway, the Perrins name rings a bell. If you're British, or in fact have any concept of what amazing joy Worcester sauce will bring to your life, Liam Perrins is the name in it. Splish and chips was a big deal when I was a kid, and I love Liam Perrins, put it in all sorts of things. Interestingly, completely accidental in its invention. Apparently they made a sauce for some guy coming back from India once, who missed some local Indian sauce. They all tried it. It was nothing like it was supposed to be, because they obviously had no idea what the actual original taste was. They were just doing best guess based off of like scrap paper maths, scrap paper recipes. So they chucked it in a barrel down in the basement. 2 years later, they come to it, try it one more time, go, wow, bang, the fermentation is the key. Liam Perrins sauce. Now, this is important. I can't find actual clean ties to the gun maker without paying for it. But I have proper civic history records through people who will have had to reference this correctly. AKA, someone's already paid for it and put that research into a different article. They refer to John Perrins, the original gun maker. He was a distant cousin of William Henry Perrins, the man who later made the sauce. It's the same surname, it's the same small patch of Worcester. I believe John Perrins was born in Kidderminster and William Perrins was born in Chaddesley Corbett. Different trades, same family pool, and that makes a lot of sense right there from just a few miles apart. And it was a time he had a lot of kids, so family trees over 3 generations looked absolutely massive. So to be somebody's cousin, second cousin, wasn't a particularly rare thing. Travel also wasn't that easy back then, so, you know, keep it in the family. Either way, fact, point proven, guaranteed, undisputable fact that this gun is a Worcester sauce gun, loosely. And that's really cool. I tell you what, it's actually just a pickup. It's immediately got it's got that little feel.
This is not the first 16 ball you said nice things about today. You're going to have to go and have a lie down. It comes back also to the conversation we had earlier with that Boswell 28 ball about re-blacking. That was salt blacking. This is a different style of blacking with a depth of luster to it that is not offensive. There's blacking really and there's blacking. So I still would rather see them silvered, but the trigger guard is done well.
Yeah,
and the top lever is done
all of
well.
it's being polished up nicely.
Yeah.
But it's all been done well enough.
Sympathetically enough, yeah.
And maybe that's the continental look, is that it looks quite shiny.
Yeah, maybe.
Either way, I think that's actually a really nice gun. Did you say 5 to 7, 4 to 6?
I think it's 5 to 7. I'd have to look it up.
That's not bad. Almost great condition, right?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't measured the barrel, so I don't know about the wall thicknesses on it. And we have to look quite carefully at those guns of this era. I just brought it out because it's an interesting transition and there's many things to talk about on this gun that we don't see in very many places.
That is a really nice gun.
Yeah. There's a little chip out there, but hey, that's fine. That can be filled.
From the little raised rib.
Milled.
Lovingly milled. The whole thing is actually lovely.
Heel and toe plates.
They're nice.
It's just the elements of quality there that are just touching.
If you want a curious gun, that's not awful. Yeah. That's not curious for the sake of being curious either, or is that wrong? Is this curious for the sake of being curious?
No, it's curious for all the right reasons, in that it's a semi-hammerless, or hammerless, hammer gun.
External hammered.
You're very unlikely to be seen in the field with another one, because there's not too many of them around, because they weren't hugely popular.
It's the sort of interesting that doesn't bore your mates down the pub, but can bring you joy. That's like the strange borderline, right?
Yeah, but you know, these days of YouTube, you don't have to go down to the pub to be a ball. You can do it on camera.
Touché. Big one. .6477C is my intelligent choice for this film, and I think we've been doing the sealed bid for a good number of years now. I'll be quite frank that looking at 680 series and Satori based guns, we could do that all day. There's hundreds of them in there, and most of them are really good choices to buy. There are some tireder, some less tired, but we've also looked at those kind of guns a lot. However, I think it's worth bringing one in as an example of what you can get in the sealed bin if you're not after the weird, the wonderful, the curious, the more sort of Simony old stuff, or the sort of more me bizarre engineering. This is 1,500. Reasonable money. It is a 2005 682 Limited, the 682 being one of the great legends in sporting clays shooting. It has a spare set of barrels, so it comes with 30 and 32 inch barrels. The replacement barrels are dated 2006, this gun's 2005, and we've got number 329 of 1500. Gold inlaid, slightly different engraving, and frankly that's kind of the difference with this particular limited edition. It has had some other work done, and I thought I'd run through what we've got here as a genuinely great choice of a gun for somebody looking for a sporting clays / competitive clays gun. On the back here we have a Kickies pad fitted to an adjustable plate. That means this pad can go up, down, left, right, change the pit, change the cant. Something that I think is actually massively underrated. If you're looking for perfect gun fit, that perfect lock into your shoulder, a lot of people just focus on this part here. Not many gun makers even provide a gun with this, and this is an aftermarket thing. Being able to tweak your pad ever so slightly can be a game changer. Depending on your shape, depending on your style, it's the difference between shooting comfortably and shooting not. Remember that most gun makers are making a gun for the 70% of people that it will fit out of the box, and things like custom stocks are really handy because it allows you to have something that is perfect. Zero excuses. They're relatively inexpensive by comparison to the cost of a custom stock to have one fitted, and it's a nice touch. Either way, that Kickies pad also adds a bit of weight to the back of the gun, which is nice. Moving on, adjustable comb. Basically, everything from here is designed to get this gun fitted to you perfectly, which is exactly what you want in a competitive clays gun. The stock is a classic 682 stock, a slight palm swell as well, which is nice, and a nice skinny neck. This was sort of what this gun was famous for, was having just enough palm to fill your hand and a nice skinny neck so you could really drive this. And we're seeing that style come back into a certain extent. Styles and fashions change, and gun makers try new things as time goes on. Bigger, heavier grips come into fashion, slimmer grips come into fashion, and we kind of see this go in waves. I don't see this as a fashion for the here and now, but I also think it's a case of it allows back catalogue to be relevant, or at least this is how I see it from a consumer perspective. I see the changes as being great because it means that in the future, if you want a skinny grip version of this, you can get it. If you want a heavy grip version of it, you can get it, all based around the same action. And the action on a 682 is essentially just a 680 action, a slightly heavier weight, on occasion 680 action. The 680 action having been around since 1979 and having proved itself as, is it the best action of all time? I mean, it's unarguably one of them. Every single part being interchangeable was such a thing, and being made at the price that they are is pretty incredible. The forend is a Schnabel forend. It's my only downside to this. I'd have loved that if it had the semi-heavyweight one. I don't know if they still made them in 2005. They had that weird circular checkering, which I used to hate, but interestingly, as time has gone on and I've grown and understood things different, I appreciate more now, at least. At least they tried something different, right? Not just checkering again. The gun currently has its 30-inch set of barrels on. It comes cased. I haven't got the spare set of barrels to hand. With this set of barrels on, they are 8 pounds, 6 ounces or something, and that includes a pair of Riley titanium chokes. The 32-inch set is going to take it a good few ounces heavier with standard chokes in. We've got a double bead sight in there and a parallel non-tapered rib. This gun to me screams DTL out of the box. Change the bead setup and you'd have a great sporting clays gun, and even then I think there's a lot of people who would enjoy it as it is for that purpose. So there you go. The limited edition adds some interest and value, at least makes it different, even if it is just aesthetically for the most part. It adds some ongoing value and curiosity. The 682 was the working man's hero in the clay shooting world, and in the 2000s was the sporting clays boom, really. It's the point where it started to get uber popular, or at least certainly that's how it seems from my perspective. And when I speak to people globally, that's seemingly the era when it was still growing exponentially, although from my limited context, certainly in America, it is still growing exponentially, which is awesome. So there you have it. A really great, not even starter gun. You could finish with this gun happily. That's why I shared it with you. It's interesting. It's actually technically great, not to be underestimated.
Farewell and adieu to you, Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu to you, ladies of Spain. For we've received orders to sail for old England, but we hope in a short time to see you again.
Lot 7103.
A typical sealed bid intelligent choice, and I often spend my time looking at less intelligent choices. This is a great buy.
Yeah. You could ask yourself, what is this gun doing in the sealed bid? Well, first catch of an eye. All right, extended stock. It could be in the Mesa. It's not that. So what is it?
It's a boxlock non-ejector.
Non-ejector.
By a no name.
Yeah.
And to be fair, Ian Riley's not a no name. That's not fair. Not an appreciated maker.
Yeah. But London, though.
Sorry to interrupt myself once again, but it actually grated on me that I said that it was a no name, because I had an Ian Riley hammer gun many years ago, and it was a really good piece of gun making. What it is not a no name, it's an underappreciated name, and you guys know I love an underappreciated thing, and I thought I'd share my deep dive that I did when I got home with you. Starting off with, Ian Riley didn't start the firm. It was his dad, Joseph Riley, started it in the 1810s, late 18 teens. By 1820 and 1830, he had an established business being part of the gun trade, a bit of a cog of the London gun trade, doing general work, making pinfires, dueling pistols, all sorts. Still guns with his name on, for sure, but he was part of the larger trade. His son, E.M. Riley, Edward Michael Riley, was born in 1820. As he got into the business in the 40s, he really actually took the helm, from what I understand, or at least between him and his father. Now there's a bit more manpower and maybe some young ambition in the business. Take Riley's, which is now called E.M. Riley, into the next level. And the next level being stopping being a cog or a part of the trade and becoming an established maker. So they moved to 502 Oxford Street and really stop being a general part of the trade. They start making more of their own guns with their own names on. And what we see is dueling pistols, early target rifles during the 50s, a full throwing of themselves into the pinfire era. And this was a time of great invention, a time of great change in gun making. And Ian Riley, like many gun makers, sits on that cutting edge of that at every point. When there's a new patent, let's make some of that. If there's a new design, let's make some of that. If there's a new fad, we'll have some of that too. As soon as pinfire starts to show a change or a wane, we look at the centerfire era coming in. Riley starts moving into that. Because of their popularity in London, they actually had a shop or a stall in Paris. Something I didn't realise. These guys were an international capital city gun maker at the height of gun making. That expansion into Paris actually happens in the 1860s, and Riley threw themselves out there into the world of marketing. They were at some of the great exhibitions, London in 1851 and Paris in 1855, which I guess chimes with if they went there to Paris, got a lot of Parisian orders in, saw there was a market there. Why would any business not go, we're a big front-facing brand. These customers want our things. Let's put a store there. Maybe, I would have thought, have some service department, some making ability. But if the customers want it, let's do it, right? That's what they were doing, unlike many other gun makers. I think that's a really cool thing about Riley. As pinfires disappear completely, we see the rise of the centerfire double shotgun, and Riley made every single grade pretty much. Also, interestingly, they still sold pinfires into the centerfire era, presumably because they were producing so much. They had some backlog. So you see some quite late pinfires from Riley. Some of the guns are genuinely excellent, some are not. These guys were a seller of guns. They weren't a maker of best guns only or anything like that. You could buy anything from a working gun up to the top. And that isn't something that has worked for a lot of people from that era ongoing. We see a lot of the top makers with their big top brands. Holland's Boss Purdy's still around. Those who tried to cover all bases and essentially just sold a gun to anyone who walked in. That concept didn't survive, but that is something that makes Riley special. When we look at Purdy, Holland and Boss, we see clarity, defined standard, and Riley resists that as a London gunmaker. He operates across levels, across markets, across expectations, and the man comfortably sells practical sporting guns as well as top-end guns. The problem is, with settling into that market as time goes on, is snobbery. If your gamekeeper has a Riley, you may not want a Riley, even if they are not one in the same. And we see that kind of thing, I guess, with Beretta. They make an SO and a A400, two very different things with the same name on. Nowadays, people are more educated and perhaps less snobby, but there is probably still a little bit of that happens even in that market with a fantastic over and under the SO, right? But most people don't think of best guns when they think of Beretta because that's not where they go. And I would have thought that would have been much to Riley's decline later on, the turn of the next century, the early 1900s. But through the 1860s and 70s and 80s, Riley's name did carry significant weight. The actual decline of Riley is something we don't know a great deal about. What we do know is that as the big names of London establish their presence, Riley fades out. As I've said, covering all bases is hard. Riley lived in a century defined by craft and quality, but he was, like a few gunmakers of his time, more than that. He was a businessman. We see scale, range, versatility, marketing. It's the idea that a gunmaker can be more than just a maker, that he can be a business. He wasn't alone in that, but it's pretty cool. For a gun that I said had a no-name maker. I apologize, I was wrong. Back to Holts. It's that sort of typical game scene of the era. This is an almost best box lock, right?
Yeah.
Game scene of the era wasn't where we see it today. We're not talking fine Bolino. Often game scenes back then weren't put on the best of guns, which I find quite an interesting thing that we see a reversal nowadays.
Yeah.
It's a nice vignette. It's like that pencil sketch in steel, if you like. Simple, straight lines, nothing too complicated.
No.
And I often wonder why that is, but you have to remember these guys were making a lot of guns. The time it would have taken to pull a gun out of production and do what we would consider fine art engraving.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't get the money for it.
It wasn't what they did either, right?
No,
These guys would knock out a house pattern scroll time after time after time. That's how they got paid, by the hour, by the gun.
By the numbers.
Yeah,
exactly. What's interesting with this gun is it's got fairly long barrels.
What a delight.
30 1/4 inch.
30 1/4 inch is a bizarre length, isn't it?
Why?
I don't have an answer for that. It's a bizarre length for an English gun.
It is. Because we could.
Yeah, and it's still original choke.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just the length the blank came in. You'll never know, right?
No.
So there was a wonder of it.
Put the barrels on and get on with it. It's in at, 80 to 120 pounds?
Yeah. So this is like the beauty of the sealed bid. Oxlock non-ejectors. Oxlock non-ejectors are overlooked to the incredible degree. Most people don't really need an ejector when they take a side-by-side out and shooting, and not many people are buying this as their only gun they're going to shoot. Having an ejector is nice, right?
Yeah.
It's lovely. I like having an ejector. Me and Simon disagree on this. I like having an ejector. I like flinging shells out of the gun when I'm in a rush. Like it's a pleasant thing to have. Even when I catch them, it's nice. It means I don't have to reach in. There's a huge benefits to an ejector, which is why they are worth so much more money. A non-ejector is a bargain. Non-ejector side locks, non-ejector box locks can be had for under half price of what their ejector cousin would be, under quarter price.
It's less complicated. Everything. There's no mechanics in the forend.
No, and yet with this we see beautiful engraving.
Very much so.
Treble grip action.
Yep.
Scroll back. There's signs of extra workmanship that went on here that you pay a lot of money for. It's just nice.
Drops on the wood.
I see it as 180 to 120 is too attractive a price. I feel like this is going to go for more. This is one of those guns that,
especially with the barrel length.
Yeah,
because it's popular.
We see this in seal bid land all the time, right? Is serious bids win, and I think if you went in estimate on this, you have absolutely zero chance.
Zero chance.
There are others where there'll be less competition, but this is a great.
This will probably make around the £300 mark.
250 to 3.
Yeah.
I don't think there'd be any problem with that. This is a gun that will last you for life.
Absolutely.
On the face of it, it's mechanically sound.
Yeah.
Obviously, full condition reports are available.
Yeah.
But you also have to be realistic with what you're buying here. It's a €100 boxlock. So
Yeah, 1910, yes.
there will be servicing that needs to be brought.
But it's
together
worth
with it.
it's worth putting back to. I mean, the checkering is a bit.
Who cares?
Who cares? This is a
Is it
beautiful
tight?
gun.
Does it shoot?
Yeah,
These are the kind of the questions with a gun like this. And can you shoot it?
this is a good buy.
Agreed.
Goodbye.
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 Every country has their own gun story. It seems to be innovation, settling, industrialization, and then it kind of stays the same for a long period with limited change. We look at England, we've already seen there's periods of mass change. We find what works, we find what's best for the market, and not much changes thereafter. Little changes maybe, a couple of stepping stones. This represents one of the great era of changes in Italian gun making. This particular gun, lot 6159, is valued at 150 to 200. It is an IAB SPA, Brevetto Marcheno Vadrompia. It is a little Italian over and under 20 bore, and I think it's really interesting. First off is the fact that it's from 1969. Being from 1969, it's the transition era. If we look at a few of the Italian makers at that point, before then, we're seeing the decline of the artisanal. And there's still like mass-produced guns there, of course, but when we're talking about sporting arms. The decline of the artisanal, and then after that point we're seeing the rise of the industrial. We're seeing a lot of the stalwarts that we see today just come into force. And this gun, we're choosing it to be the hill marker of that turn in the tide. There's hallmarks on this gun of things that we understand from Italian craftsmanship today, or gun making today, and things that we can see from Italian craftsmanship before. All from an area that didn't have tons of money, but did have a lot of craftsmen, and so we see some totally unnecessary touches of quality in a gun that's quite reasonably priced. Lots of cool stuff going on here. Come over the top. Let's run her through. Starting at the front, we've got 27.5-inch barrels, 20 gauge, as I said, choked half, and full proper 20 gauge hunting setup if ever there was one. Overall weight comes in at 6 pounds 1 ounce, which is kind of lightweight, but when we look at the action design and slimness of all the bits that go around on this gun, it's understandable. The forend is actually a really lovely shape. There's nothing bad about the forend. Nice radius, fills the hand perfectly. Little crack running up there, which is a bit of a shame, but the way this forend pops on and off is extremely tactile. It's the right word. It's just nicely put together. The way that it drops in and that pulls off just is indicative of hand finished guns. And we're not talking insane quality here, but we are talking a nice level of finish. These are not monoblock barrels. They're nickel chrome steel, nitro approved. These are sprung loaded ejectors on the actual rear part of the receiver here in 1969. Again, nothing new, but it is early in that kind of period of having sprung loaded ejectors wound into the gun like this. A lot of other makers back then had your ejector kickers or the springs loaded in the forend. This is something we see on other Italian guns, but it's really interesting to see that already as part of the culture and people noticing that this is a good way of having your ejectors. The gun swings off of this very small hook here, it's very small, and locks up with a single bite there. Because it's a chopper lump barrel, meaning there's no monoblock the tubes are put into, but the two tubes are actually joined together and machined to have the chamber and tube together, you've got such a shallow frame here that you can get away with having this bottom locking lug and where it's a 20, still having a very shallow action, which I think is actually very desirable. Just in terms of proportions, it's very elegant. You know, it's, again, not groundbreaking, but quite early to have all of these things, and real interesting. They're already looking at reducing the action size overall, although we're already obviously seeing Italian guns come out with Holland and Boss locking mechanisms that, well, still work perfectly today. If we move on to the action, we've got a double trigger set there, non-articulated. We've got a pierced top lever, a really beautiful safety catch. I know that's kind of petty. Simple enough action engraving, and the brand. What's cool is that these lumps also act like drawers, a little bit like the Browning, so when they clip in and go down, they fill that hole at the bottom of the action. But that also is part of how this gun locks together, rather than just space saving. These faces do all butt up together nicely. On the rib here, IAB Marcano Valtrumpia, made in Italy. IAB stands for Industria Armi Bresciane, which literally means Brescia Arms Industry, because IAB isn't like a single famous gun maker in the way you might think about it. It's a product of its place, a little bit like the Spanish did, but more effectively. There was groups of artisans that joined together under a brand name, or a cooperative, if you like, of gun makers, small gun makers, who produced products like this. Brescia in northern Italy has been like the centre of Italian gun making for 500 years, as at least that's when we first have our records, with Beretta being 500 years old. And by the 1960s, it hadn't just whittled down to one or two companies, right? It was an entire network, and it still is something that I find fascinating. Certainly when we went out on that project with Rizzini a couple of years ago for the 240 and 220, getting to go inside all of the outworkers that still work and supply the industry is absolutely fascinating. There's tons of small workshops, specialists, families, so whether that's finishers, engravers, parts makers, somebody who you send out for your stocks to be finished, someone who you send out to have your engraving polished, your trigger sears done. Anything you want regarding a gun, there is a family or a company that can do that. And IAB was just all of those people coming together without a brand name. I think a lot of the reason that companies like this still don't exist today is, I mean, it's not a particularly exciting name, IAB, I guess. So yeah, when you see that stamp, you're not really buying a make, you're buying into a system. And it's also not entirely fair what I said earlier about Italy not having tons of money in 1969. They did, actually. They're going through what I think is commonly called a post-war miracle. Post-war, they'd rebuilt and they'd strengthened their economy. And what they were seeing was massive growth. Industry was getting easier. They could make things faster, make things better, and the export market wanted what they had. The cost of living there wasn't as high as it was in other countries. So they could make great quality produce for less. And you know, the rest of the world that loved this too. 1969 is a little bit early for Italian guns hitting England in the way that they did some 15 or 20 years later en masse. We were still having a love affair with the Spanish and their gun trade. But what they were doing was sowing a seed, entering these markets. 10 years after that, everyone has now understanding that the Italians make great products, and we had been using them for all of that time. And now look at the state of the world. The Italians kind of dominate sporting shotguns. And that's kind of incredible. And I guess that's why I decided to pick this gun as the turning point gun, the IAB, a gun you are unlikely to see again. Have a little look at the engraving on the bottom of the trigger guard there. This gun is a sum of lots of people's talents, after centuries of gun making in that valley, which is very different now, but still very present there. It's like a Bitzer gun, in a way, but only in the fact that you've got lots of bits of different people's lives and stories coming together, trying to compete on a stage with some of these big companies that were suddenly stepping out into the world from a tiny little valley in northern Italy. How cool. I love the scroll back action. I quite like the trigger brakes and the double trigger are really pleasant. I love the way that it handles and sights up. All in all, What a great little gun. There's only one little thing that somewhat bothers me, and it's the fact that we have a plastic heel plate fitted to this gun that's clearly original. But wherever these guys got it, it had a different brand, maybe the brand of who made this stocks, and either they or somebody else has carved off the original branding from the butt plate. Maybe it was obtuse, maybe it left a mark on their shirt, or maybe, just maybe, there was a disagreement that one of the players in IAB got extra credit by putting their brand on the back. Who knows? Simon, so this is an interesting cookie of a gun in that we both think it's very interesting.
It is, yeah, it's because it's quite unusual. It's really quite rare. It's a Dixon 16-bore sidelock ejector on a London pattern, but even more than that, it's a Beasley-style self-opener. It's the only one I've ever seen.
Well, it's apparently one of the only ones ever made and one of a pair. The other one is probably lost somewhere in the
There is another one somewhere,
bush.
Yes.
This is lot 7397C, indicating it is case, not its original case.
No, it's not. The case has got little to do with it. It's a Beasley case.
250.
So it's £200 to £250 because it's a stock action and fore-end only. Before everyone gets excited by saying, "Oh, I could have a self-opening Dixon for no money," it's because the barrels are out of proof. Now,
explain this to me. What does that mean as a buyer? We're aware of what out of proof means.
Yeah, so out of proof means the bores measure too wide from where they were proofed, which means that you as a buyer cannot take possession of these barrels without us cutting a slit in them to prevent you from using them straight away. You have to go and get them sleeved. So you'll get the chambers. We won't cut the end off the barrels. We cut either a V-notch 9 inches from the breech or a slot underneath the fore end. So that ensures that whoever buys it has to go and get it sleeved, has to get new tubes sleeved onto it. The reason we leave the ribs intact is so that people can do that. It is a requirement by law. It sounds like vandalism, but it is a requirement under the Proof Acts that we do this. And there are no exceptions.
So let's talk about the solutions here. So actually, let's not talk about solutions. Okay. Let's talk about this gun.
Yeah,
so this is actually really exciting.
It is a really interesting gun. It's been Africanized. It's come out of South Africa, so it's been out there for some time because it was made in 1913. But it's really unusual, and Dixons would do this if they had a special request from a client who walked into the shop and said, "I want a 16-bore sidelock, but I want it a self-opening Purdy style." They go, "Okay, it's going to cost you X."
So there's some interesting things going on other than the fact that the action itself is rare and being done by Dixon. It's just nice.
It is. It's good quality.
It's a restock, right?
It is.
It's got to be a restock.
And it's the wood
is African rifle spec. Right?
It looks like a bog seat.
Strong.
But
strong, very strong.
The actual headwork, the grip shape, the checkering isn't too bad.
It's
the
got
shape
a diamond
of the stock
grip on it, which is
I know.
bizarre.
They got a lot of it right, except the actual choice of the wood, and they did the same with the fore end. Now, it may be that they couldn't get hold of high quality stop blanks to do the work. That's probably going to be the reason. But actually, the work done is actually really quite good quality.
Quality is subjective, Simon. We're aware that quality is subjective. This is not a bad quality piece of wood. It's a pig ugly piece of wood.
It's very, very strong. Should we say that?
Yeah.
It's got no figuring to it.
You'd happily have it on a gun that's going to last forever. It's just, it's not a look.
It's not a looker. It's really not a looker.
But what it lacks there, you could have that redone. Let's play the budget game.
Yep.
Let's say you bought this for £300 plus commission, you're 400 quid. Let's say you're into for £400 for this gun, which is cheap for the action.
Yep.
What's it going to cost to get us back in reality?
Well, you probably know more about the costs of these things than I do because we auction them. We don't restock. We don't rebarrel. We don't sleeve. We know that sleeving jobs, good quality sleeving jobs, you're looking now at between £3,000 and £4,000 to sleeve new. Probably more. You're right.
If you can find someone
to do it. Most people are getting the go away price because it's a dirty, difficult job to do,
and to get it done to the standard that people imagine. They need it done, which we do, right? We spend half our lives looking at sleeve guns going, "Oh, I wish it was done better." That's literally what we do. So we could be part of the problem here.
Yeah, we could.
Almost to the point that a new set of barrels is only a few £1,000s more.
That's pretty much where we are economically.
Which is incredible.
I know. If you get them rebarreled by another, then your resale value goes down. But then if you're buying a gun like this to restore, you're probably not looking to sell on anyway. You're probably going to treat this as a project.
This is a Dixon collector's wet dream.
It is,
right?
yeah,
Apparently.
because it's rare. But even if you were a collector, you probably want to get it done by the makers because that retains a level of character.
Yeah, which adds also a slight touch of cost.
Yes.
Dixons aren't an expensive gunsmith. Not really in the grand scheme of gun makers.
No.
But I would have thought you'd probably be into about 12 to 15 by Dixons, 8
probably.
to 12 by somebody else.
Probably, somewhere around there,
Yeah.
yeah. So it needs quite a lot doing to it. But certain things, if you're passionate about them, how else are you going to spend your money? Some things are worth rescuing.
100%.
We do this all the time.
And a rebuilt Dixon is a pretty common thing nowadays. In fact, it's part of the collectible club with the Dixon is that I bought a rebuilt version of this with new barrels and new stock.
Yeah.
And the law of Dixon almost allows that, whereas the law of other makers doesn't, which is kind of interesting, which makes this more viable than other projects like this.
Yeah, when you put it like that, probably. But also we have to take into account that 20 years ago, sleeve guns were deeply out of fashion because everyone said it ruined the handling, and that was true. A bad job does. It makes it very, very front-end heavy. Personally, I like a little bit of barrel weight for clay shooting. I don't mind sleeve guns, long barrel sleeve side-by-sides for clay shooting, but that's me. Everyone's different. These days, in the world of non-lead shot, as we're moving towards it in 2029, sleeve guns suddenly becomes an asset because you've got thick tubes. You can tailor them, forcing cones, choke profiles. Yeah. You can have it modernised at the point of redoing the gun to make it suitable for the next 30, 40, 50 years, generations.
Kind of cool, right?
Which is kind of cool, yeah. So it's not necessarily the drawback that everybody thought it was.
I guess the question is it worth it? And I guess the only person who can answer that is the person who's going to buy it.
True.
You can own it with the cut-in forever and never shoot it, right?
Yes. You still have to have it on a licence.
Yeah.
Because the action is a pressure-bearing part, licensable.
And you can export it?
Yes.
Okay. So this could just be a really beautiful wall hanger for, let's say, a couple of grand exported to the US. It could be a really beautiful wall hanger in your collection. And it would be a crying shame, of course.
Yes, it would. I don't want to see this taken out of use, to be honest with you, because it's...
But you are then asking somebody to buy a £400 gun and invest 12 grand in it.
This is it. I'm looking for somebody with the passion and the resources to bring this back to life.
Yes, that's kind of the sad thing. It's why I never really venture into these when I look at the sealed bid catalogue, because I actually find it heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking.
All of the best guns in the sealed bid pretty much fall into this shelf.
Yeah. Yeah, and there are people around who will do sleeving jobs, but it's finding them and being patient enough because they're busy.
Yes.
Like a lot of gunsmiths. Good gunsmiths are always busy.
And a sleeving job is so far from their priorities list because it's a hard way of making money.
It is.
Well, that's sad, isn't it?
Yeah, but we needed to talk about stock and actions.
Yeah, and it is beautiful. I mean, it is an incredibly good-looking gun.
And very, very unusual.
Yeah. It's always interesting to see another maker's take on another maker's style, right?
Yeah.
And we're saying about the diamond grip, the engraving is very Holland.
Yes, it is. Oh, and it's got elements of...
You never know.
It's got elements of a lot of things. So it's got the Beasley patent self-opening mechanism that Purdy have used since it was invented. You've got a Holland diamond grip.
Anti-gravity barrels, man.
Self-opening. So, yeah, all on a Scottish style with that beautifully elegant top lever and the best safety catch ever designed, in my opinion. I love this equidistant double ramp. Is perfect. It's on one of my guns, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, that's that. Let's move on to something that people can actually pull the trigger on.
Actually shoot, yes.
Yeah, but it is just, it's nice gun making. It's so heartbreaking. I can't handle it. I'm too emotionally fragile for this gun, Simon. Tim, we've got a pair of guns in front of us today that, on the face of it, I thought were going to be really cool. And apart from them not being for me, I actually still really like them.
I like them.
£800 to £1,200 will get you a pair of composed, matched, I guess.
Yeah,
they're
matched.
Have been factory matched or workshop matched. 12 bore, 25-inch Churchill rib, pistol grip.
Yeah.
Shotguns.
Arthur Allen.
So that is a name I had never heard of before and may never hear of again.
Retailer,
Glasgow.
Glasgow.
So they are a Scottish-ish gun, right? Yeah, they've got a Scottish flavour, right?
Exactly.
It's the engraving, the sort of sleekness and the shape of the action all has a Scottishness to it, which is actually really interesting. How many pistol grip 25-inch guns have you ever seen?
None.
Yeah. What an oddity. So it's a composed pair, matched pair. Sorry, so, and matched pair means they brought these two guns. We bought one gun, went back in and said, I'd like another gun, please. The first one, number one gun, born in 1915, serial number 7241, gun number two, serial number 7355, born 1935. So we've got First World War serial number at least, maybe finished after the war, and an interwar gun, which is slightly more exciting, maybe. Actually, I'd just love your opinion on them before we sort of take a deep dive and rip them apart, because on the face of it, it's good value for a pair of Scottish-ish guns.
Oh, absolutely. And well paired.
Incredibly.
With that amount of years in between. I know it's not a lot.
20 years is a long time.
I would say so.
It's more than half of my life.
Very, very well paired. They're odd. I like them. The engraving is a bit weird, very rough.
Yeah, I don't hate it though.
No, but it's got this Scottish vibe to it with these round, the ball very round. And
yeah, that fore end is deep.
Yeah.
Like, there's something about these guns that I can't quite put my finger on, but they're unlike anything I've ever seen. What do you think of 25-inch guns? I feel like we're due a revival on 25-inch guns. I feel like people are becoming more realistic with their expectations of their shooting than they've ever been. I'm seeing more people not buying a 32-inch for the sake of buying a 32-inch. Certainly for a shooter's perspective, less people obsessed with 30 inches and more people happy to step into 28 inches. Given the time that these guns were bought and existed, people were shooting a lot of birds to a good standard, not at insane distances, but not at 2 feet either. Do we think we are due a 25-inch revival?
I'm not sure.
You're not convinced?
No, I'm not convinced.
Okay.
28 maybe?
All day long.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're already there.
No, not our end of the world. 29 is as low as we can go.
Are you serious?
Yeah, absolutely. Anything less than 29 is a no-go.
What? I mean, if you could explain to me, I mean, I could be on your side of this argument very easily, but why?
There's no reason to it. It's purely just taste. People think that, oh, I want long barrels because I can shoot longer, faster. It looks right. It's just more popular.
Yeah, that is as far as I can
But that
see it.
That's what's in the box of reasoning. Because if you were like, it doesn't make you a better shooter. If you are as tall as you are, of course, there's some proportions to it.
Yeah, but I can shoot a 28-inch gun pretty damn well.
There you go.
That sounded braggadocious. Didn't mean to be. It's like, I can shoot a 28-inch gun well. And that's probably equivalent. Equivalent? That is probably the equivalent of you with a 25-inch gun.
Probably, yeah.
Sidebar, and this is actually a semi-interesting one. 1915 is too early for a 25 with a Churchill rib. Okay, so we just took a little break to deep dive on these, and this is kind of what I find most interesting in the sealed bid. Is in the mainsail, there's a lot more main names, big names, more research history by the guys, because there's less lots, right? You can't just spend hours unnecessarily on every pair of guns in the sealed bid, although that would be fascinating. These guns are Glaswegian by finish.
Yeah.
We would both agree that these actions have all the hallmarks of a Birmingham action.
Absolutely.
Right? Finished. And finishing is an easy word to say. finishing requires a hell of a lot of work, right? It doesn't just come in like this. Very likely engraved by them. Very likely filed up by them. If you've ever seen a rough action barrel set in the white, they can come really rough, right? They just look like a lump of gun. All of the things that we kind of love that make a gun more unique are those finishing touches, inherently. What's inside a Anson and Dealey boxlock action is uninteresting for the most part. You get slightly more interesting things, intercepting sears, but we're not so concerned with this. With the sidelock, there's more interest in the actual mechanics of the action. With this, there's not. What's interesting is the external finish to us.
This is just, we know it works. We know what's in it.
Yeah, that's why we love it.
That's a working dog.
What's interesting is diagnosing all of the parts that come together.
Yeah.
I think what we've come to the conclusion of is that this single gun probably wasn't anything like this pair of guns originally, which leads us maybe to even question the stocking thereafter, but we're not going to get down that rabbit hole. One would maybe assume the stocking is original, or this number one gun was his favourite because of the wear on the one is more than the wear on the two.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is the set of barrels. 1929, Robert Churchill comes up with a concept of short barrels, legendarily, because he cut his barrels off, went out, won the competition. Suddenly, short barrels are the new in thing. Instinctive shooting. We don't need swing anymore. Long barrels are because we had black powder. We needed that ignition length, but now we need shorter.
Well, that one is just too early.
Exactly. And so then we look at the barrels, we realise both the barrels have the same maker's mark, almost identical. The matching, again, is perfect. Same maker's mark of J. Asbury, very famous Birmingham barrel maker, very likely took the gun or said, oh, I bought this gun, I'm having a bit of buyer's remorse, all my friends are buying short-barreled guns for field work now, I'll take another one, I want this rebarreled to match this. I don't want a gun to match this, I want this to match this.
Correct.
The hybrid. Interesting thing, the pistol grip, pretty bizarre to me, but if it was a long barrel gun before, a long barrel Scottish gun or a 29, 27 inch gun before,
it would make sense.
It makes sense. Now we've got like this incredible hybrid that fits no particular period in time as a pair of guns, is Scottish but with Birmingham money attached, which is, it's a nice pair of guns for the money.
It is.
I mean, a pair of guns for less than a silver pigeon is always good. Yeah. That may not be popular in barrel length, but I think that most people need to be realistic with what they're shooting. Sure. I had a hell of a good season this year, taking my 410 out in earnest for the first time. I took it out for 2-3 days. I loved it. It's a 27-inch barrel AYA. You don't need a 32-inch barrel 12 gauge for everything. You don't need even a 29-inch barrel side by side for most things. Most things don't require much of a swing.
No, it doesn't.
Most pheasants are shot within 25 yards.
Exactly.
This is perfect for that. I feel the need for some resurgence or a higher degree of respect for a 25-inch gun.
Well, you can't, of course we can't ask people to cut down their barrels, but here's a little, or can we?
No, I don't know. I'm looking for a revolution, Jim. I'm looking for, I think there are so many 25-inch guns consigned to the worthless category for no reason.
Yeah, no.
And I would hate for this pair of Scottish-ish, actually delightful pair of guns that come in a box.
Oh, they're in a double motor case. Because I think it even come in a Purdy motor case.
For less than a silver pigeon.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to look at this pair of guns and go, oh, they're 25-inch, I don't want them.
No.
I understand they're short-stocked and left-hand cast. That is somewhat of an issue, but not much of an issue. These stocks could be cast right-handed.
Absolutely.
The trigger's right-hand triggers anyway.
Yeah. They are just left, that's it.
Yeah, it's cast on rather than left-hand. You could have these bent over, you could have them extended. If you wanted, you could take a trip to your workshop and have a new stock set made.
You can.
But that would cost a lot more than this pair of guns.
So the second one was built to match the number one, yeah?
Yes, but then both barrels were done in the 25 style, which then opens the door to anything else could have been made. Either the number one gun was his favourite, but the number one gun is clearly more worn in the stock, which means in my head maybe the stock was the 1915er. I don't know.
I'm amazed that they're two different
Or
eras.
that this breakage took this off the shelf until that was repaired. I love
Possible.
I love the story behind this, right? So that's why I'm asking you. Me and Tim looked through them. Oh, what do you think? What I do know is the barrels were made in line with the second gun, so it didn't start life as a 25er.
So the actions are very, very close. I mean, they are very close. There's a slight discrepancy in the engraving here around the top lever pin, where you've got double rings of engraving. The other difference is the breech end engraving here is different, and the rib. That is file cut, that is not, that is smooth.
This is the number one gun.
Yeah. So that looks to be the original spec.
Yeah, but it wouldn't have been made with the Churchill rib in 1915, so these barrels would have been remanufactured post-1929, but then potentially either before that, or he had that done and then said, knock me up another one. But it's weird that this is engraved on the barrels and this is engraved on the rib.
Yep, that's different too. So it is a very peculiar pair. The Bristol grip shape is odd. But again, I mean, as we have seen, you could shoot that one-handed, and it may well have been designed to be shot one-handed to give you that extra bottom of the hand grip.
Wonderfully deep and round 4-inch shape that actually isn't horrific for a splinter. It's
No.
a deep splinter, it's nice.
No, but it could be somebody with a damaged hand, couldn't it? And it's a very peculiar one. But yeah, Arthur Allen of Glasgow made some nice guns. And
You've seen others?
Yeah.
I never have.
Yeah, no, we have occasionally. He does some really nice box locks, and we see them occasionally. Most of them come out of Scotland, funnily enough. So it's a mystery, isn't it? It's one of those things that we like piecing together. They're all right. If you like 25-inch barrels.
Which I think more people should. More people should be more realistic with themselves and what they shoot at and how good they are.
Try them. They're very, you have to shoot them in a slightly different style.
It's aggressive. It's nice.
It is aggressive. It is... you can't come away from a 30-inch over and under on a clay ground and shoot a 25-inch well. It's not going to work. You need to alter
not immediately.
Not
right.
immediately.
Yeah,
No, it'll take you a year to learn it.
No different to 410s, 28s. You can't just pick it up and be good. No. You need to learn the art of the different gun.
Yeah, but they are surprisingly effective once you understand how to drive them differently.
Oh, yeah. I asked Tim the same question. Should we see a short barrel resurgence? I think I'm seeing more and more people move away from 32-inch, even in sporting clays.
Really?
Back to a 30. Being realistic with themselves, whether that's their 5'6" blokes, older guys, people who just actually understand that the forgiveness in a 30-inch is worth the trade-off in smoothness from a 32-inch.
I can't get on with a 32-inch, and I'm 6 foot and a bit. So I have to get that on camera because I never look 6 foot. And somebody did actually say to me yesterday.
I mean, you are very tall, son.
He did say to me yesterday, "You're much taller in person." I said, "Yeah, that's because I'm standing next to Johnny most of the time when you see me together." Thank you for proving the point. Anyway, but yeah, I've always shot 30-inch. I can't get on with a 32-inch.
It takes work.
It does a lot of front-hand work to move it properly.
What I find even just moving between them is the place where you pick up a target and how you manage a target varies. And we've got a film coming out actually because I wanted to go down this rabbit hole. 28, 30, 32, just in the same over and under, just with different barrel specs, to really see and try and boil down what the difference was and whether it made a difference. The answer is yes, it does.
Yeah.
They all break targets.
Yeah, they do.
The speed with which you can engage a target and also then mess up the move increases with the shorter barrel. And that's the same with a bird at a 25-inch, is you don't connect at the hedge and then make a big swing. You go, whoop-bom.
See it bang.
Yeah, and it's
Beak bang.
Incredible.
Yeah. And in the right hands, watching skilled partridge shots do it in the traditional manner, they are very, very good at what they do.
So yeah, and what for
and you're being beaten by speed. You're not being beaten by height, and that is the art of traditional driving partridges. Someone says, "Oh, they're too low. You can hit that." Trust me, I've seen people undone by driven English partridges in Norfolk
100%.
who never thought they would be, who thought close was easy, and it isn't. So the speed of them is incredible. But yeah, should we see a resurgence in 25-inch? It's unlikely, I'll be honest.
It's so deeply unfashionable in the clay world.
It is deeply unfashionable. I have now got a gun with a 30-inch set of heavy barrels, full clays, but also a 27-inch with a Churchill rib.
Interesting.
And I'm learning that 27-inch can do an awful lot. And the big 30-inch barrels, they're both 70mm chambered, but the 30-inch barrels are 3/4 in both, and my God, they smash clays. They are lovely things to shoot, good long loopers with. But when you go to a competition, you will find that little loopy thing at 5 yards occasionally to sort different people out. And a 32-inch is not the right tool for the job there. So it's funny how, I mean, and a lot of people are buying super cylinder chokes from Teague to do this. I know, because the really close close target is
every major
a course setter is putting them on.
Yeah.
It's not always stuff out at 60 yards that's going to sort you out. So they're not the right tool for that. They never will be. But they have their devotees and they have their purposes.
Not every gun needs to shoot clays.
No, it's true. This is true.
In fact,
These aren't even close to design for it.
No.
The fact that Churchill had huge success live pigeon shooting, because allegedly the apocryphal story is that his barrels got run over on the way to the live pigeon shoot in Monte Carlo and he had to saw a couple of inches off it and ended up with a 25-inch and won the competition and went, being the marketing genius he was, hang on a minute, there might be something in this.
It's an
fast
interesting
instinctive
thing.
shooting.
It is an interesting thing, but it's a different game.
It is a different game. And it's almost, you have to, with short barrels, as I understand, those who do it well tell me that when the gun hits your shoulder and the face is on your stock and it should do it at the same time, those two should connect at the same time. It is bang, as soon as it's in.
It's trusting
your body
your
movement,
eyes,
bang.
right?
Yeah.
Trusting your eyes, but also your talent.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people who talk, certainly about from clay shooting, is just like catching a ball. It's nothing like catching a ball. And shooting a short barrel gun from my experience isn't like catching a ball, but it's, you do have to trust that the timing is on.
Yes.
Whereas with a longer barrel, you can fanny about a little more.
Yeah.
You can place your shot. With one of these, there's not much.
No.
If you try and trace it, look like shooting a 410, there's not much tracing
No.
going on. It's a case of bang.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, they are interesting guns that will appeal to a certain style of shot.
It's a shame they're not longer. Because I really like them.
Yeah, I mean...
And I shouldn't.
Well, you should try that 27-inch of mine, see how you get on. Halfway house.
I do actually own a Sarasquita 25.
Okay.
I know it's not like an interesting gun.
Yep.
I didn't hate it. I can shoot it all right.
No. It's funny, isn't it, that there's a little bit of first-time-itis there as well, isn't there? Do you find that? When you pick up a gun and yes, I can shoot this, and then you come back the next time and the third time and the fourth time and you're like,
gunny moon.
oh, God, a gunny moon. Exactly the right phrase. There you are. You've said it before on camera, I know.
Yeah. Inherently,
You'll find it with this.
You pay most attention, but I think once you've stuck with something long enough, that's what falls into your flow and your timing is what's right for you. And you can force yourself into a lot of different things.
You can, and you did that interesting interview with Anthony Matarese the other day where he was talking about if you're going to change guns, trade up. And he was quite right.
Yeah.
Don't just do it because...
Better service life,
At that
better
level,
mechanical
anyway.
levels,
Yeah.
better barrels.
Yeah, yeah.
Like just going for a different engraving.
For us enthusiasts who are nowhere near Anthony's level and never going to get there, yes, we can...
Which he understands,
knock
actually,
about.
which I thought was quite interesting, is he totally understood. He's like, oh, a new gun, all right, great, get a new gun. Don't begrudge you a new gun.
No,
new
fair
gun's
enough.
fun.
Yeah, but do understand that your first time out, you won't be thinking, you'll be so engrossed in the fact that it's your first time out and enjoying it. The second time out, you'll start thinking about it, and you want to get away from that quite quickly. So give it a go. Give a 25-inch a go. See how you get on.
But you can buy them for nothing. It's just an interesting gun. Like I say, the history, the science, learning about what's going on here, all of the little gun design tweaks from the interesting shape of forend, which is something we've seen in other guns, to the pistol grip.
Yeah.
It's just cool.
Yeah, that pistol grip is different. And I quite like the number 1 and 2 inlaid as single digits.
I think that's really nice.
Yeah.
Really nice. Not everywhere.
No,
which
just there,
does
just to
lead me
identify
to
them.
put the wrong barrels on the wrong place originally. They were in the wrong side of the motorcade.
Barking like a dog in my own reflection. No self, no sense of direction.
Lot 6120 is an interesting one. It is a Maruku 5000 special. Many of you will be aware of my long love of Maruku and my complete lack of understanding of early models and how most people feel kind of similar, that changing what your model name means, or number means, sorry, across time in all these different catalogues, whilst keeping the number almost exactly the same, to say something like the 3700, was really confusing. This one is a 1992 Model 5000, a much more modern era of gun, and ergo we know a little bit more about it. Many of you will be aware that the current lineup is 60, 70, 38. The 60 was previously the 6000, the 70 was previously the 7000. Very similar guns, one a fixed choke, one a multi-choke. The 5000 actually sat below them. Can you imagine if there was now a Maruku MK50? I think that would be quite interesting as the raw bones of the range. I don't think that this is a particularly pure addition of one of these guns. I feel like there's been some stuff gone on with this. But like with anything from the Maruku and Browning lineup, regardless of how much they change the outside, upgrade the wood and upgrade the engravings, the beating heart is made to the same standard. What you're getting is all of that reliability and all of that quality for less money and some less spec. I have a feeling that this is not the original stock and forend. Most of all, the wood doesn't fit. It's a little bit loose anyway. It's loose on that action anyway, but when we push it up into bear, barely touches home. And the headwork doesn't sit that nicely, meaning I just don't think it is from this particular gun, or at least even from this era of guns. Something just not quite right there. I'd have to take it apart to find that out, but the sad thing with an auction is you gotta buy it to be able to play with it. This one isn't a lot of money at like $250 or something, which for an over and under of good quality is not a lot. It's been reproofed in 2025, so relatively new reproof, and there is no original proof mark upon it, so where this one came from, we shall never know back in 1992. Maybe brought in from an overseas person from a country where they didn't require proof. I don't actually know. The barrels on this particular one are ported 27.5-inch barrels with 0 choke. This is a skeet gun through and through, and quite a nice skeet gun it would make as well. Wide tramline rib. There is no mid-speed, you could put one of them in. No taper to that rib, it's 13 millimeters. Little taper at the back, I suppose, to join the action. Once it hits its width, it's 13 mil to the front. And a big beaver tail forend being put on there as well. What's interesting is this action has received a polish. The sad thing about polished action is as soon as you touch it with anything, it shows up all of that dirt. Which certainly, if I remember my Marukus, I went for quite the opposite, more rat rod effect, so that when they were dirty, they looked exactly the same as when they were clean. You got a selector on there, not that it makes too much of a difference when both of your chokes are the same. I think that would make a great starter gun for someone. What's interesting is I've spoken to a few of the great shooters over time, and a couple of them have mentioned that choke is great when you're better than when you begin. Most people, when they start out, over choke, and they'd actually be better off just shooting skeet and cylinder at absolutely everything. And I think that this is a great option for that. Certainly as we move into the era of steel, we're not gonna need a lot of choke. The Maruku aspect is brilliant. Once that stock was sorted, you could either get it fitted or fit it yourself, or do a very limited amount of work to make sure that was actually on there tight and correct, and you'd have an incredibly good little shooter for not a lot of money. And if you want to be slightly different, you're not going to see many 5000s about the place. Simon, one of the most common questions or requests I get when we come into Holts from my American mates is if you see any good quail guns.
Quail guns.
And so I saw these two and thought, what a lovely what a couple of great quail guns, especially this one.
Yeah.
This almost doesn't deserve to be in the sealed bid.
It's one of those that's just on the cusp of... Again, we come back to slightly too much refinishing going on to make it a main sale worthy gun.
Before you go nasty.
Okay, here we go.
Be nice to it. Tell people what it is.
I'm going to be nice to it because it's one of my favourite makers. It's Charles Boswell.
Okay.
Top lever hammer gun in 28 bore with a pistol grip.
They're an 1800s originating gun maker who made a hell of a lot of guns for export.
He made all kinds of guns. He ended up, well, he didn't end up, he specialised as well. He had a reputation for specialising in live pigeon guns, but he also made guns to suit all disciplines. So if you had a discipline that you wanted a gun for, Charles Boswell was your man. He was a competitive live pigeon shot in the turn of the century himself, so he was selling guns to his customers as well as his competitors. This is one of the Birmingham style, probably Birmingham made, finished and retailed by Boswell. Lovely little hammer gun in 28 bore, which would have been probably a boy's gun to start with, as a lot of makers made 28 bores for nephews of customers who were ordering pairs.
And if you had the money to have made for your nephew a brand new, very exciting small version of yours, my God, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, money was... This is pre-First World War, when the old agricultural incomes were at the highest.
Yeah.
So a lot of these landowners,
a
lot of these landowners had a lot of money to spend on guns, and they'd buy the relatively cheap one for the boy, the nephew, as well as ordering their live pigeon guns, their pairs, their sidelocks as well. So, but what we get now is a lot of people asking for smaller gauge guns, specifically for walked-up hunting, walked-up quail shooting, walked-up grouse shooting sometimes as well, snipe, woodcock, that sort of thing. These perfectly fit the bill.
So there's some nice things about it in that the stock is not small. It's like 14 and a quarter, 14 and a half.
Not tiny, no.
And it's stocked relatively high, which means you can shoot it.
Yes.
The barrels are not tiny, 27 inch.
It's a fraction of an inch more than that, but yeah, I think. So yeah, it's all round better proportions for modern game shots.
And not a lot of money.
No, it's not huge. Not huge.
For a 130-year-old 28 gauge hammer gun.
Yeah, so it will have friends.
Rare.
Yes, it is. And they are beautiful things to shoot. I shot a 20 bore round action Dixon, quail hunting in Arizona a couple of years ago. Had an amazing time. Absolutely amazing time. I mean, I was after the Grand Slam, and I missed the Scaly. I shot the other two, and I'm still kicking myself now that I didn't manage to do the Grand Slam, because I don't think I'll ever get the chance again. But it was an incredible experience, an incredible landscape, which is just half the reason we go, isn't it?
I was going to say, any corner of the earth chasing something new that takes a bit of effort.
Yeah.
I'm there.
It took effort. And actually just trying to understand the speed of a Mearns quail surprised me as well. It might be an optical illusion, but they're on a par with the speed of good grouse.
Interesting.
Because they're tiny and they're just moving so fast. You need a lightweight gun to catch up with them.
So sort of, even only sort of shooting the plantation stuff that I've done, the speed with which they appear to be getting away from you is concerning.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. So you need to be on the money without rushing. And these guns are perfect for the job. They really are. With modern ammunition, they perform brilliantly, as you've shown in other videos. Yeah, there's the sweet spot of it. You don't have to go too big a load.
No, I know it's probably worthy, before we move on to the other gun, of noting that I think there's also that I know a lot of places just don't allow a 12 gauge. A lot of the quail plantations don't allow a 12 gauge.
You can understand
But I think with modern 12 gauge loads,
you can go down.
As long as you're intelligent with it, there is plenty of beautiful, lightweight, English, classic, short-barreled 12s that will do a very similar job to this.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is £5, so you might be more around the £6 mark. Still lightweight and way more accessible.
Yeah.
You'll have a lot more choice if you don't mind a short-barreled gun that weighs less, and you're intelligent with your loads.
Yeah, you don't need a massive load all the time. I mean, 21 gram will do a lot of things.
21 grams in a 28 gauge is...
Sorry, not in a 28, in a 12. In a 12.
No, I'm saying, but 21 grams in a 28 gauge will, as they say, do exactly the same as 21 grams
in a
12 gauge.
Exactly.
It's the same 21 grams. And yes, there's some very boring bar chat about ballistics, column length, and all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the science does say the bird doesn't care.
No, it really doesn't.
So,
no,
yeah.
Exactly. So, yes, you can spend a little bit of money on a short-barreled 12-bore and put light loads through it, or you can spend a bit more money on a beautifully handling little 28-bore hammer gun. I know where I'd go. It's designed for the small gauges, isn't it, that gauge? So, and that's a cracker.
The checkering, everything about this gun.
The shape of the pistol grip as well is just, it sits in the hand beautifully. This angled pistol grip cap, which a couple of modern makers are looking at now and recreating. It's that line on an old English gun sits really well in the hand, especially if you're used to a pistol grip over and under.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot to be said for that more Woodward-esque kind of.
Yeah, it's not
thing.
quite there. It's it's a little bit more pronounced than that.
Yeah. I like it.
But no, it's a lovely little thing. It really is.
Yeah.
The only thing I'd say is I'm not a huge fan of re-blacked hammers. I'd like them to be in keeping with. Look, okay, so we're here to discuss.
So carry on.
these
No, this is actually very interesting.
I'm here, and also one thing you have to watch out for on some of these older hammer guns is do these screws that lock the hammers on, are they matching? Because sometimes they get lost.
I mean, we are in the sealed bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So
we've
things
got
are gonna
some
be-
concessions.
yeah.
Like I said. We've got a refinishing job. The stock's been refinished. The
Yep.
checker's been refinished.
Done nicely.
The parts have been blacked in part, not all of them. And to be fair, this hammer, something wrong with the hammers. I'm going to put my finger on the way they've been blacked. Isn't quite right.
It's matte finish, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's not
just a
right.
bizarre matte finish
Yeah.
as well. It almost looks rusty
Yeah.
from the off. And we've had a nice little repair up there. But
Yeah.
the things that are important, the barrels seem in relatively good order.
Yeah.
And it locks up.
It locks up nicely. Yeah. So
Why don't you want bits re-blacked?
it just looks slightly incongruous. It's a little bit like it's been dressed up for sale, and
I mean, it has.
and that always concerns me. Of what else are you hiding? If you're trying to distract me with these bits here, looking flash.
Oh, is
what
that
else
your main
wrong?
concern?
No. But it's one of the concerns.
Okay,
it's
that's
just
interesting.
It just looks incongruous when you see one where the steel parts all match in that faded colour. It's just more pleasing to the eye. This is a little bit go faster stripes.
I don't know. I think there's an element,
for
and
me.
I think this gun is a example that I don't appreciate as much. But there is times, certainly something like on an old box lock, for
Yep.
example, when you get the furniture re-blacked,
Yeah.
it can bring that gun back to life in a very special
Yes.
way.
Trigger guards and floor plates on box locks. Yes.
And what that can do is make the action that has very little colour left pop in its own special way rather
Yeah.
than all just looking like a big grey lump.
True. But for some reason, to me, when you've got the beautiful little accent of a hammer on the outside of a gun, it's a shame to make it not match or just to try and make it stand out too much, if that makes sense. It just looks incongruous to me.
I could feel that.
Yeah. But everybody's different. Everybody's taste is different. And they can be stripped back and taken down with a little bit of acid. Some gunsmiths are very clever to be able to, colour metal that way.
Antiquing.
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 To return it to normality, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
but-
I totally appreciate your viewpoint. I think it would look better if the hammers were the right kind of black, not this weird matte black, but a lusty blue black. It's a much more blue black a hammer should be.
Yeah.
But I get your point of view. I think on this gun it stands out, especially because the hammers versus the size of the gun are quite prominent.
Yeah, they are. They are a little bit. So it's one of those, isn't it? I mean, I'm in condition report frame of mind because we've been doing condition reports for a couple of weeks now. We've got a couple of weeks to go. So if it sounds like I'm hypercritical, forgive me. Sometimes it's our job to be quite critical when we're doing condition reports, to point out all of the flaws.
There is many versions of Simon I get to encounter, and the Simon who is near auction date is the least loving of guns.
The tension flows out, does it? Well, there's quite a lot going on, and there's sort
just
of
28.
usually my brain's trying to do four other things.
But it
at
is
the same
remarkable
time.
that you're not saying nasty things about 28 gauge. So
Well, this is
let's
it.
put that to one side. I really love this. I think that's
It's a lovely little
one
thing.
of the guns
Yeah,
of
it's
the
a
sale.
lovely little thing.
It does. I see why it's in there, but if it was in the main sale, I'd get it too.
Yeah, no, nice thing.
This is a little bit more intelligent and probably draw less attention.
Yep. Yes, it is. It's a W. Richards of Liverpool, not to be confused with Wesley Richards. 20 bore, box lock, non-ejector, which is tight and has nice, honest wear, is the way we would describe that, because it hasn't been dressed up for sale for auction. It has been lovingly used for the 100 years it's been around, and it's showing honest scars. That's the way I like to see them.
This is the poster child of you're only in original condition once, right?
Yeah. Yes, it is. It's not very high quality. It's good quality, but it's a Birmingham trade gun retailed by W. Richards of Liverpool. Sometimes he has a Preston address as well. And it's not to be confused with Wesley Richards. W. Richards was William Richards. Wesley Richards, two different men.
Yeah.
Different company entirely, just down the road.
I think if you phone them up, I remember phoning them up a long time ago for something, maybe an RFD transfer, and they were like, no, We're the original W. Richards. I love it.
Yeah.
There is something nice about that gun.
Yeah.
I think there's something. It's hard to put this into words without sounding thick. Doesn't usually bother me. Something really basic
Yeah.
that hasn't been mucked about with,
Yeah.
and you'd call it an honest gun for sure. But there's something just really nice about a thing that is itself
Yeah.
and that needs no other explanation. You say it's not a quality gun.
Nope.
I've seen vastly worse quality.
Absolutely.
This is a good quality.
It's a good quality gun, not a high
simply
quality
made
gun. Yeah,
Yes.
it's simple things done well. It's a classic Anson and Dealey boxlock done well. And they produce these in their hundreds of thousands in all gauges, all sizes, all barrel lengths to suit a global market. And this was a little 20 ball made.
It doesn't have to be super exciting to still have
No.
100 years worth of history.
It's got a lot to like about it. Yeah.
And we say most times that it's easy to get jaded. But I always find something like this always brings me back a little.
Yeah. I mean, take that up the Welsh mountain, chasing wild stuff on top of a Welsh mountain.
Perfect.
That was a good day out. That'd be perfect for it.
I think a 12 ball was I took a 28 gauge up there last year. 12 gauge.
Really?
Well, because it may be walked up, but they're still coming off the mountain.
They are.
And I still like the idea of the ability to kill.
Yeah, yeah. Reaching out and touching it properly.
Yeah,
But you can do that with good 20 ball loads.
yeah, for sure. But I wouldn't want to put ounce and 8 through there.
No, it's not built for it. No, it's a lighter load. It's a 26 gram gun, isn't it?
It's like,
Not a 30 gram gun.
Little woodland walked up. Ooh,
Perfect. Yeah, perfect.
What a beautiful thing. Again, it doesn't have to be remarkable. I think it's often easy. You'll hear every day, I get to come here a lot. And even just people who are into guns, it's often easy to just get jaded with a box lock 20 gauge. But it is
But they're good little guns. They are just, and you put them side by side, you can see the difference in refinish, not refinished. So you can see the knocks and the marks. It's hard not to just be, quite nostalgic about those little 20 balls, actually.
Yeah, right. And I was saying, there's something about this, the honesty or whatever you want to call it, just this being a point in its journey that is really special, whereas this is a really cool thing.
Yeah.
It lacks an aura.
Yeah.
It sounds ridiculous, but it just lacks something, and I can't put my finger on it because it's ridiculous to say it's nicely finished, it's had all these things fixed. But that inherently is sad.
You can imagine this one telling stories. This one's had its stories edited.
It's like, literally, it's like Jim Carrey with his new face. You're like, where's Jim Carrey gone?
I haven't seen Jim Carrey's new face. Jim Carrey's got a new face.
Yeah, he had plastic surgery.
Oh,
Man.
really?
Yeah.
Right, the gossip.
Yeah, they got him. I think it's the standard thing. Mate. They got him, mate. It's like,
Well,
he didn't want to be part of it. Now he's part of the cult magic. We've lost
okay.
Jim Carrey.
We lost Jim.
We lost Jim.
sad.
Heartbreaking.
But we've still got W. Richards and we've still got Charlie Boswell.
Even if they've got him. They've got him, Simon.
He's got turkey teeth.
I think that could be the thing. Like, it's just, there's something, like when you see someone who's had the surgery and you go, there's something not right about that. It's not bad, but it ain't right.
But it's not right.
There's something just off about the whole thing.
Yeah, editing.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Don't say editing. Editing's great. We like editing.
Oh, sorry, no, well, I'm talking about writing editing. You're talking about film editing, so. No, editing makes me look a good shot. I'm all for editing.
I was about to start going through this gun and I stopped and took a brief look at it, and I've seen my fair share of Betton and Solley side blades, but not one with a pine marten chasing a chucker on the side, but it could also be a fox. I would have guessed it's a marten just from the way it's climbing around that tree. On the other side you've just got a woodcock. Just, of course. It's not super crazy engraving, it looks like rolled or etched or something along those lines. And I thought it was worth taking a quick look at this Betton and Solley, which is lot 6290 at 100 to 150 pounds, born in 1989, because we usually just skip over the top of this kind of stuff. It's not curious enough to fall into the, what's the right way of putting it? It's not curious enough to fall into the curious category, and it's not good enough to fall into the good category. In fact, generally Betton and Solley as an over and under does sit curiously in the market, certainly from back then anyway. It's not cheap junk, far from it really, but it's not big three material from the 80s. And even then we could probably expand the 80s big three to more of a big 5 or 6 when we talk about reasonably priced over and unders. Browning, Beretta, Maruku, Winchester, maybe big 4. I should say that Nico, SKB, Gamba. There was tons of great guns from back then. In fact, there is a Gamba in the main sale I was going to look at and share with you, and it is so good. But we've also I feel like I've done that to death. And I'd love for you to give me your opinion in the comments if you'd happily just see the same sort of things time after time, because I'd happily share the things that I'm most passionate about, which is mostly things like that. But this is what I wanted to look at, so let's get back on the topic. Army Betton and Solley. What's interesting is when you actually look on forums, and I spend a lot of time on international forums using Google Translate because, well, we live in a time where that's possible. These guys get a lot more respect from hunters in Europe, especially Italy, than I really thought that they deserved, being basically marketed or discussed as the budget Beretta of their era. See, when I think of that, I think more in like the Frankie camp, but I really wanted to take a look over this gun and discuss whether that is ownership pride or whether that's a genuine thing. So, without further ado, coming over the top, let's break down what this gun's all about. Let's start with the big numbers. It's 7 pounds 3 ounces. It's got a 27 3/4 inch barrel, which is kind of standard for the era, and a 14 1/4 inch stock with a tiny hard heel plate, so not hard to extend. We've got machine cut checkering that's had a little bit of abuse during its life, but you know, the gun is 36 years old, and being a budget guns ironically always have a slightly worse life. Looking at the stock, plain, simple, but intelligently spec'd. It's just a mass-produced stock, isn't it? I said that machine cut checkering. What is interesting is the headwork up and around here, because of the way they've cut the plate, because of the way they've cut the stock, actually does lead this sort of really nice line in there. It's not worth writing home about, but it is a pretty feature. Wood to metal fit around the fore end is next to atrocious. The fore end is big and bulbous and obtuse. And I guess that's kind of the cheap gun making of this era. That's what it was all about. Cheapness or value, or money saving, more importantly, came from the reduction in engineering costs, which is what we see here, really. What's actually interesting here is the 3 screws in the side plate. I've seen a fair few Betton and Solleys, and this one does stand out as slightly different. The 3 screws in the side plate. One holds the back of the side plate, one goes into the action. The other one must serve a mechanical purpose, which is somewhat interesting, or it is just an extra screw for the sake of an extra screw. I'm trying to cast my mind back to the days of working on these things, and I can honestly say I didn't work on that many Betton and Solley side plates, but because of the value, most people would just go, it's not worth it. So that is actually a flaw in my knowledge, which is very sad. Back to the point at hand. Betton and Solley. Betton and Solley have made plenty of guns for themselves. We've seen things like the X-Trail, the Diamond line, which this looks very much like it is part of. It's a good, simple design. They punch above their weight, I guess, price point-wise now, but they've never held serious value. They never were an expensive product, and second-hand, they've never ergo been a respected one. Products that aren't respected new don't hold second-hand value. That's kind of how the world works, right? What they have done, which is interesting, is make guns for other makers. I think they made guns for Franchi at some point, Frankie at some point, from what I remember. And so the chances are you've seen and held one, maybe without even knowing it. If we dig deep into the Betton and Solley action, early iterations actually were less good, and we see early 80s even through to the early 90s, but more commonly in the early 80s, the action design having some issues. Issues realistically like sear issues, double discharging, trigger slips. This forced them to redesign it, and we see actually a redesign about this era and another one in the 90s for the action design that is very similar to the one that we see in more modern era guns. Gunmaking hasn't changed a great deal since the 80s in terms of designs. For a lot of makers, and we look at, I mean, crikey, some gun designs are over 100 years old. What's interesting is when a gun maker finds what works, they don't change it, because what we require as shooters for the most part is reliability, and reliability comes from consistency, Consistency comes from not changing things. When it comes to this gun, the side plates do a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of its looks, and there's a few non-side plated versions in the sealed bid from a similar era, and they don't hold quite the same prestige in my eyes, I guess, and that's, I know, purely aesthetic. Betton and Solleys from this era, I mean, they were answering a market demand, which is why we see so many of them. They were reasonably priced. The world of recreational shooting was expanding. The sport side of recreational shooting was expanding, as well as people wanting more for their money. I mean, that's probably a perennial thing, right? Is we all want a prettier gun for less money. And the Italians in the 80s answered that on force. It's where we really see the Italian rise to power in a more global fashion. Late 80s through to the mid 90s was a point where everyone started to pay more attention to affordable Italian guns. They were cheap and they worked. Some of those brands stuck, some of them didn't, and this is one of the ones that still kicks about today. On a more gun-specific note, this one is actually in really nice order. The thing about cheap guns is they either have a rough life or they have a great life of not a lot of shooting, because people sometimes buy inexpensive guns and don't shoot them a lot because shooting them a lot can be quite expensive. This one, although it has a few little marks of use, certainly certain sides of the checkering, certain little bits that could do with a little love, it's probably more age-related than abuse-related. What's interesting across the sealed bid journey that I've had and looking at all these guns is that late 80s and early 90s patch sees the expansion of the Italian market into the world even more than they had been doing already. But certainly at that mid to entry level market, the market for gun buying was changing. More recreational shooters, more accessibility in certain countries, sports shooting, hunting, and a demand for this kind of product, clearly. Because it's not just Betton and Solley we see in the 80s, it's tons of other makers. Nowadays we have relatively few by comparison, although new ones pop up and change. We see the Turkish market has come into the world. It's just very interesting to see a gun from that era, as well as many other guns from that era, and where they sit and stand today. Well, what I've got here in 5587 is a half-finished project by the look of it. It is a half-finished dangerous game rifle in 4.58 Win Mag, which is a lump of a gun. This gun was clearly designed to be carried with its synthetic stock and such, but I thought it was worth having a little breakdown of what we've got here and what it would take to turn this basic setup into something significantly more serious. So the overall weight of this gun is 8 pounds, which is pretty lightweight. On the 24-inch barrel, we have Churchill Gunmakers of London. Certainly not the normal Churchill we would have thought of. We have London proofed in 2023, 4.58 2.5 inch. That's a big lump of a gun for a lightweight thing. Some of the metalwork is still in the white. We can see the open sights on top here still need to be filed in. That's quite a bit of work to get done, but not an impossibility by any stretch of the imagination. The bolt again has started to be shaped. This is all a bit of a rough basic action, which is actually interesting because this is how a lot of guns start life, as a basic Mauser action with a barrel screwed into them, and then it's some nice sights sorted out, some nice metal filing up going of the bolt and such to add a touch of quality, all strapped around a floor plate, maybe a little touch of engraving, nothing too much, and then whacked in a basic stock. This synthetic stock is a bit of a curveball, but it has been inlet relatively nicely, absolutely no drama there. And so from a basic carrying rifle standpoint, I'd rather carry this rifle all day weighing like this than something else. The brutal reality is that to train with a rifle like this would hurt. So this rifle's in at 300-400 pounds, not a lot for a big caliber rifle. That I'm sure with a small amount of work, if it's being proofed, get those sights sorted in, get some of this metal work finished up, would be an exceptionally good tool. I think a new stock would be nice. That's going to set you back a little bit of money, depending on who you get to do it and to what standard. And yeah, that's kind of it. This is a pretty pretty reasonably priced working rifle. And if you don't mind the synthetic stock look, which, let's be frank, is not the end of the world if you're carrying one of these professionally, just getting some weight added in the stock there to calm this little beast down would be more than good enough. I'd love to see someone take this project and finish it. I think it might be a step too far for me and my time allowance. I'm getting better at saying no to the fact that I've already got a pile of guns that I will never complete. But what an awfully fun gun this is. I'd love to see somebody take this rifle and run with it. Go and have fun. Build a great working rifle of your dreams. The beauty of a gun like this is it's about cash flow. You can do a cash flow build rather than have a load of money up front. You buy the rifle, not a lot of money, and then just have it finished piece by piece. What a great thing. Nice Timney trigger, good solid action that needs a little bit of love and a little bit of filing up to just make it more refined, if that bothers you. You've got that great big extractor. You've got everything you need, like I said, to go and, well, use it in the field. I guess the real issue is the expense of actually using it. .6816 is a gun that both of us would really dream of owning. I've never had one. I'd like one. I know you feel the same from previous discussions.
I mean, look, so you either love side levers or you hate them. We love them.
How could you hate a side lever?
I know. They're so ergonomic to use. They're just beautifully positioned. There are side levers and there are side levers. This is so Stephen Grant,
the thinking man's London gunmaker.
Exactly. Who and if you notice the connection between, we discussed this before, but the connection between Grant's later sidelock side levers and Boss's side levers is because Stephen Grant was actually the managing director of Boss as well, so he brought his side lever to Boss. This is earlier. This is Horatio Phillips' patent, lever cocking side lever, Stephen Grant, box lock, non-ejector.
Trigger plate, baby.
Yes, it is.
1883.
So this is an 1883 made gun. The patent is actually earlier than that.
1879.
Exactly. So this is the transition away from cocking hammers on the outside of an action, and everybody was madly working at the bench and at the design table to try and work out how to do it.
The 1880s design war almost.
Exactly.
Right? Everyone, no, let's try this. Let's try it every year, every month. A new
every
patent,
6 weeks.
A new design hits the market as the new best thing, and
the pace,
fascinating
the pace
itself,
of
right?
invention was insane. It was literally week to week somebody was coming up with something new or a variation on something that had gone before. This is pre-Anson and Dealey coming up with the idea of barrels dropping to cock hammers. This is a very elegant, beautiful solution to how to cock hammers without hammers actually being on the outside of a gun. And they are very, very graceful guns. The lines on this are lovely. However...
Well, what's also interesting is this Horatio Phillips character is actually a very famous aerodynamicist in his other life.
Which I didn't know
just a gun
until we
guy.
looked at him. Yeah.
And it's always the beauty of researching anything in the seal bid, or in the main sale, but the seal bid even more so because of the rarer, more shagged level of the guns. You find things that weren't cared for, weren't considered prestigious. Yeah. Planes, cars, anything that had airflow, and it's easy to say, you can almost see that kind of look on this, right? It is a very sleek looking machine.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, I read an article once about the 3 most beautiful man-made objects, and I compared a Dixon round action, because I love them, to a Spitfire, to a Jaguar E-Type.
I remember it.
And it's about flowing lines, and it's no surprise to me that somebody like Phillips became interested in aerodynamics, because look at the lines on it. This is the way that guy's brain was working, and people with mechanical abilities like this to come up with a lever cocking patent to solve a problem here, they of course are going to apply it to all kinds of other areas later in life. As technology changes, the lever just doesn't quite match up, and it's one of the problems here with this gun,
right?
Which we're going to come on to talk about.
We've seen almost identical versions of this in the main sale over the years. This one's not there. This one's £300 to £500.
Yeah.
Which is a attention-grabbing price for a very nice gun for a reason, sadly.
Yeah. When you see an eye-grabbing price, the price reflects the condition. The estimate reflects the condition. So there are a few problems here, more than one. Firstly, it's a sleeved gun. It's 28-inch sleeve barrels. The sleeving job is a good one. Let's say that.
And not that much of a price destroyer on something like this
No.
generally.
No.
It should still have more value than it has.
Yes. The problem comes that the heat discoloration to the action, which is deliberate. Now, you can alter the colour of steel in several ways. One of them is by applying heat to it, and it is a bit of a garage gunsmithing way of doing things, isn't it?
I have almost no comments for the guy who decided that was a great way of making this gun look better. I'd rather it was brassoed.
Yeah. This is hard to get back. It's hard to get back.
Well, the problem is, right, with applying heat to metal, is something we figured out thousands of years ago,
Yeah.
is that changes its composition.
It does. It changes the granular construction of the steel.
And so doing that, getting steel to a temperature in which it will take on these case colour hardened semi-refurb bullshit colours,
Yeah.
it's offensive.
It is, and it can do serious and unrepairable. Let's get my words out properly. Damage.
You know, I've seen people who know better do this to guns. I find that such a bizarre thing.
I know.
It's not a baker. It's not a common thing to do that to. But I guess if you wanted to bring the look to your gun and you had this grand idea.
And it's had a fair bit else done to it as well. I mean, there's very little left of this fore-end wood. You've got an insert repair there, but
113 years of use will do that to it now.
but look at the profile of it. You can see that the chips to the edges of the fore-end, instead of being repaired properly,
It's just been
sanded
out.
So it's not ideal.
No,
It's a lovely thing in upsetting condition.
something wrong with that.
Yeah,
When
it doesn't
was
lock up properly. The
sleeved.
jointing isn't right. It needs a fair bit of work to get back, to be honest with you.
This one, sadly, it's not past it. You could get it back into a condition relatively easily, but it will never be a condition that you would be truly in love with. If you chuck 1,500 quid at it, you'd have it somewhere healthy.
This is it. It's
Healthy-ish.
buying right to be able to justify the repair bill, isn't it? Is leaving enough in the budget to be able to get it back into some sort of fettle.
Yeah, $2,000 for a trigger plate non-ejector is a lot of money.
Yeah,
Even a Stephen Grant side.
I know. It's just not economically viable, and even as a passion project, you're struggling. You can see the drop points have been recut poorly as well. It's just not there now, which is a real shame, because they're lovely things, these.
Yeah, I guess it's always the balance for us, Simon.
It is.
And this is an easy one that we could... It's actually a worthwhile question is, would you rather see it like this, or would you rather have seen it scrapped?
Just apply the brakes when it comes to... Okay, so you did all of this really good sleeving work, and then you went and did that and that. Just find your handbrake. You know, reach your limit of your ability to do things, and please just take a second opinion from somebody who...
Where would humanity be if we listened to you?
Just
Still riding horses. Like, there is something quite exciting about pushing your limits, and that's like it's the human condition of many of us is just to do stupid stuff. And
there's
see
a
what
time and a
happens.
place, damn it.
And once upon
to
a time,
push your
this would have
limits.
been worthless.
Yeah, humans should push their limits on the track, you know. Finding the other side of the moon again is great, but really, please don't try and improve on really, really good quality gun making from the turn of the century, because you're not going to get there. It's a real shame.
Again, another one of those. If I had a vast sum of money, it's not far off. It's $5,000 away from being something really cool.
Yeah, it's not worth $5,000 on it though, is it? That's the problem.
Even in great condition.
Yeah.
If this was fully refurbed, 2.5.
Yeah, still exists. Is it worth it as a passion project? Maybe,
Yeah, I mean,
maybe.
It's not
Depends.
taking money, mate.
It depends.
That's not ridiculous. It's easy spending other people's money because I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Because I don't want one so bad that I wouldn't just wait around for the right one. But I do remember the last one that was in the main sale went way above estimate.
Yeah, because they're really lovely things.
So,
and can you imagine walking up grass with one of these?
just a
Bit cracker.
lovely thing.
What a lovely thing to take on a mall.
The whole thing is just, it's a great thing.
Yeah.
And cursory note, that kind of goes along with a lot of the things that we see behind us here and that we've looked at in this video and have looked at over the years, is there's a lot of things that need work. Certain things you can do yourself. Certain things are fun to do yourself. Cheap Italian over and under. Cheap Spanish side by side. You want to mess one of those up. You be my guess.
There's plenty of them around.
I think that's the sort
plenty
of
of them
perfect place to do it. But
But when they're scarce, please take a second opinion from someone who's been around these things.
I've been in positions where I haven't had the money to do what I want, and that's not stopped me doing what I want.
I had an agonising 12 months when I was given as a present from a friend of mine a Dixon hammer gun, which I shot all kinds of quarry with, and I was, should I extend it to fit me? Should I get the barrels redone, the Damascus in that really lovely old dark grey that they had at the turn of in the 1870s? Should I get the action, cleaned up a bit? Should I refinish the stock? And I talked to just about everybody whose opinion I value and trust. And Graham McKinley up in Scotland, one of the best known Scottish gun makers, actually summed up the answer in a very short sentence. And he said, it's only in original condition once. And it was shootable, as is. So I said, that's exactly right. It's not my quote. It came from Graham.
Well, second-hand Simon quote.
So you're going to find the longer our friendship goes on, Johnny, that most of the quotes that I have are not me. They're other people's, just disguised well. But Graham was absolutely right. I extended it in buffalo horn. The original pad was buffalo horn, so I didn't detract from the originality. I got it to fit me and left it alone after that because of that comment from a man who's been around Scottish guns all of his working life and has seen everything. That was his advice.
Yeah, but I guess it's how gone is too far gone. This is too far gone. It's no longer in original condition, but even if it was, it would need some love and work. Right? That's why it was sleeved. That's why these things happen. That's why certainly when we looked at the other gun earlier, that's too far gone. There is a point where intervention is necessary. Yeah. But it is expensive, and that's the way it is. Sadly.
It is. Sadly. So there is a point where passion and budget need to be tempered. And you can't just keep lobbing money at stuff. And there are some things that are worth saving because they're ultra rare and ultra interesting. And if it's worth it to you, it's worth it. But some things are too far gone.
Yeah, I think some people like projects too, right?
Yeah.
Classic cars are just a good way of wasting your money.
Yeah. But you'd go and get advice from a classic car restorer. Go and get advice. Talk to somebody. Most people are very, very approachable for these things, for this piece of advice. Should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I?
I'm not sure if I agree with you on that for the most part.
Okay.
I think a lot of people find a lot of the experts in the gun trade very unapproachable.
Well, maybe I'm in a privileged position there.
You are very. You're Simon Reinhold after all. Christ.
Okay. Well, I can try and help out if you've got questions.
That's the kind of attitude that I think that it takes. A lot of people are scared, right? Because you would walk in and you get talked down to, and there is not a grown man who likes getting talked down to. Because
That's a
not
shame.
many men like being ignorant. I think this is the truth of it. It's why certainly everyone on a clays course, as soon as you shot 6 clays, you're an expert. Like, not many people enjoy like that, the naivety and the vulnerability that comes with ignorance. And so certainly with the internet, you can go and become a master very, very quickly. And you want to do your own thing. And if you go into these people and they don't treat you with the respect that I think knowledge sometimes comes with arrogance, or knowledge appears as arrogance, is that fair? This is a bit deep, sorry.
It is. Well, it is. Question. I mean, the whole... I got no problem with appearing ignorant. I'm ignorant on a whole range of subjects. And I enjoy going to ask questions to people to find out more about stuff. Ignorance is actually, where we are for the most part.
Bliss.
You cannot... it might be. You cannot understand everything, even in the age of AI and ChatGPT. Exactly. You're never going to understand everything because ChatGPT doesn't always get it right. So that's disappointing to hear. But I accept I am in a privileged position when I ask questions of specialists in the game. But please do not stop asking questions because your knowledge expands because of it. There's always more to learn, always, for anybody. And anybody who thinks they've got all the answers and all the knowledge is kidding themselves.
Ain't that the truth? Right, this is a bit more like it, right at the end of the film. This is the sort of thing that you find in this sale all the time. Or at least variants of, because you don't find this type of gun in the sale all the time. So what I mean is, if you look right, you can find guns by makers that are rare and special and undervalued, but still properly made. This is a 1959 build IM Crudgington of Bath boxlock ejector. It's valued at £300 to £500, which is not a lot of money for a properly built provincial English gun. Very likely on a Webley action, just looking at it at a glance. But there's nothing wrong with that, right? Inherently getting a gun in the white from somebody else and doing the bulk of work yourself is no bad thing, providing we're seeing the original piece, if you like, the barreled action that you get, or action or pieces that you get, being of a higher quality. And we've said plenty of times that I'd rather they did that and started with a gun of quality than did it themselves to a lower standard. And this is a great example of that. There's a number of things I want to go through on this gun, and one part about it that is unfortunately a little bit tired, but we'll find out more about that as time goes on. It just kind of requires a bit more deep dive, this gun. So firstly, I am Crudgington of Bath, a very small maker. 7 Green Street on Bath is on the top barrel there. It's a 28 inch with a raised 25 Churchill style rib on a very Webley style action with a lot of original colour on it. I am Crudgington on the side with some fairly simple scroll work and a scroll back action. Inherently nothing too interesting going on here, but good quality workmanship nonetheless. You do have a treble grip, hidden third bite in the top there, just a little bit of extra strength, a little bit of extra quality in the gun making. All of this is kind of interesting to me. It's the sort of gun that people would have bought and used from a small gun maker, although probably more part of the trade system than a gun maker. A gun finisher is probably a better way of putting it, but a trained gun maker, Crudgington himself, of course. So yeah, the sort of gun that somebody would actually bought and used. And 1959 is the interesting part of this. 1959 really is the end of the great era of British gun making. It's the era before imports dominate just, but it's not an era we see a great deal of guns coming from. In fact, thinking through all the guns we've ever seen here, the amount from the 50s is probably one of the smaller gun-making eras in the UK. Most of the reason I got this one out to share is it's a gun maker not many of you would have heard of. It's serial number 21. You're not going to see many of these things around. And the workmanship is nice. It's solid. The gun has seen a little bit of a life. We pop the forend off there and give it a little shake. You can hear just a little rattle. But with the forend on, the barrels are tight to the face of the action. It's an indicator that it will need a rejoint at some point. And the stock heading up is loose. Sort of when I first picked it up, I assumed that was cracked. But actually, looking at it, we've got a replacement screw in the floor plate here and the trigger plates here. I wonder whether there's a loose screw in the back. And our trigger tang, which is a short Webley style one, is half undone. What this makes me feel, there we go, if we push the safety forward, is we've got just a tiny bit of recess. I reckon if we tighten these screws up, gave this gun a bit of love and service, it would be good to go. I remember a very wise old gun maker once saying to me, is it doesn't matter if it wobbles when the forend's off, as long as it's tight with the forend on. There's elements of truth to it, right, from a raw practicality standpoint. He's not entirely wrong. It would just be a shame for box logs to be snubbed forevermore. We've got IMC struck on the barrels here, meaning these barrels very likely were made by I.M. Crudgington himself for this action. The truth is, we'll probably never know. The thing is about these small provincial gun makers is there may be records of it, but they're not super publicly available. I just thought it's a good, honest gun. 28 inch, £6.40, nice, lightweight, classic game gun, but with that raised Churchill rib over a slightly longer barrel length. To raise up, tell you what, it's got all of the hallmarks of a gun I'd enjoy shooting. It's put together nicely enough. And it's a gun with a little bit more interest and history, but still with a good, solid base of an action. All that original colour, all that original gun making, all that history that comes into this, all based around a single trigger and an ejector. This is just a great side-by-side without too much history, but some great modern history. From the south, from the southwest. Get on. Oh, guys, thank you very much for watching this sealed bid video today. It's been a long one, it's been a good one. We've looked at some real fascinating guns. It's always interesting to learn from Simon. I have an apology on my front, is I'm struggling to talk, so I'm a little bit slurry because I've got tonsillitis, but I figured Holts waits for no man, so better to come and do it, and hope that the look of the guns was good enough for you. I'd love to know your favourites. It's going to be 3 months till we're back here again. I'd love to know what you'd like to see. And as always, appreciate you watching. Take care, guys, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for watching TGS Outdoors. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. The channel would not be possible without the support of our amazing sponsors who keep videos coming to you week after week. If you really enjoy the channel and want to support it yourself, please consider becoming a member. Channel members get a bit of extra content.
Today we're going to be talking about good shooting advice.
But mostly, you just keep us going, and we love the support. There's a great community goes on behind the scenes. Take care, guys. Goodbye, and we'll see you on the next one. Guys, one final note. It's actually not agreed on unanimously that IAB stands for Industrial Army Bresciani, but it's the only documentation I can find and the only real agreement I can find on the internet. Like so much from that period of gun making, documentation's pretty thin, and so best guess is as close as we can get, but I didn't want to have to explain that earlier. Thanks for watching to the end.